We're good. We are now resuming our board meeting with public hearing quasi judicial number 2, which is a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Division 5. No. Hope Sound, Article 12, Community Redevelopment Code, Land Development Regulations, Martin County Code, Florida's Mobile Park LLC. Mr. Senate.
Commissioner Hurd.
Oh, yeah, this is quasi judicial. So, Mr. Senate, have you turned over all the necessary items to the clerk?
My work history and the agenda item to be filed as Exhibit 1.
Terrific. Let's go through ex parte disclosures. Commissioner Vargas?
None have been filed.
Commissioner Capps?
If I have any, they have been filed.
I have none, and they've been filed. Commissioner Campy?
I have none, they've been filed.
And Commissioner Heatherington?
I don't have any, and they've been filed.
Would anyone who's going to be providing testimony please stand up and be sworn?
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And are there any interveners?
No interveners.
Excellent. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm John Sennett, Senior Planner with Growth Management. This is a request by Engineering, Design, and Construction on behalf of Florida's Mobile Park for approval of an amendment to Division 5, Hope Sound, Article 12, Community Redevelopment Code, Land Development Regulations, Martin County Code, for sub-district change from the current general sub-district to the corridor sub-district. The subject property is an existing recreational vehicle park located at 10705 Southeast Federal Highway, south of Southeast Porter Boulevard, and west of Southeast Dixie Highway within the Hope Sound CRA. The subject site is outlined in red. It's approximately 7.98 acres. It's an existing recreational vehicle park. It is bound to the west by Federal Highway and to the east by Dixie Highway and to the north by Porter Boulevard. The Greek Orthodox Church is located to the north of the site across Porter Boulevard. This mobile home community to the south is the Seabreeze Mobile Manor Mobile Home Park. The property owner also owns this, it's approximately 1.3 acre undeveloped parcel north of this L-shaped building. However, the property outlined in red is the subject of this application. The property is located in the Hope Sound CRA. To the east of the site, we see the regular Article 3 zoning districts, R2 and R2B. The future land use designation of the site is CRA Center, as well as properties to the north and the southwest of the CRA Center designation. The mobile home park to the south has the CRA Neighborhood designation. And to the east of the property across Dixie Highway and the FEC right-of-way, we see the low-density future land use designation. The current subdistrict of the property is general. To the north of the property, we also see the general subdistrict. And to the south of the property, we see the corridor and the mobile home subdistricts. Florida's Mobile Park proposes a change from the current general subdistrict to the corridor subdistrict. Recreational vehicle park is not a permitted use in the general subdistrict. The applicant is seeking the change in order to establish recreational vehicle park as a permitted use on the site. The corridor subdistrict is intended to extend the pedestrian-oriented building types, frontages, and streetscapes along a major roadway. This is an excerpt from Martin County Land Development Regulations, Section 12.101G. It demonstrates which subdistricts are designed to implement a particular future land use designation. As you can see, the requested corridor subdistrict is consistent with the CRA Center future land use designation. The subject site does have the CRA Center future land use designation. These are the development standards for the existing general subdistrict and the proposed corridor subdistrict. Most of the development standards are identical. You can see maximum residential density is 10 units per acre, building coverage is 60%, maximum height 30 feet 2 stories, minimum open space is 20%. These are the conditions supporting the request. The subject site's location along Southeast Federal Highway and Southeast Dixie Highway, which are classified as arterial roadways, is consistent with the goals of the corridor subdistrict. The range of residential and non-residential uses permitted in the corridor subdistrict is compatible with the established pattern of development in this area of the Hobe Sound CRA. The proposed change to the corridor subdistrict is consistent with the underlying CRA Center future land use designation. This matter was heard before the LPA on January 16th of this year. They voted 4-0 to approve with 1 absence. Development review staff have found the Floridays Mobile Park application to comply with all applicable regulations and the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan as detailed in the staff report. Staff recommendation is to move that the board receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report as Exhibit 1, and move that the board adopt the ordinance amending Division 5, Hobe Sound, Article 12, Community Redevelopment Code, Land Development Regulations, Martin County Code, to change the CRA subdistrict from general to corridor on the subject site. That concludes my presentation.
Questions for Mr. Sinnott? Applicant, you have a presentation.
Good afternoon. For the record, Brad Curry with Haley Ward. I have been sworn in, and I turned in the notice affidavit at the LPA meeting for the notices for this project. Today, I'm representing the owner of a 7.97 acre property located on the east side of US 1 and on the south side of Porter Avenue. Staff did an excellent job presenting the application. I do have a presentation, but I don't need to go through it because I think staff did an excellent job. Many of you know this property as the old Angle Inn. I think it has a little bit of history with people that have been in Martin County for a while. And my client bought the property in 2010 and started cleaning it up and making it a respectable RV resort here in Martin County. We started this project some time ago, several months ago, and the intent of the reason I got involved in this project was to do a redevelopment of the parcel. And so we started looking at the land use and zoning, and we realized that the zoning and land use of this property was changed in 2020. And it was changed to general subdistrict, which doesn't allow RV parks. So under the current subdistrict, we would not be able to do a redevelopment plan for this project. And so that was the first thing we wanted to do, was change the subdistrict so that we could start the redevelopment. This is an older park. It does have its own sewer treatment package on the project today, and we would like to remove that and put a lift station in and tie into municipal sewer. The subdistrict change was done in 2020, really at the height of COVID, and I think my client, if they had known that, that the subdistrict change was going to make it to where RV parks were no longer allowed, we would have definitely voiced our concern. But I believe with everything that was going on in 2020, it just was missed. So really the first step in doing any kind of redevelopment for this project would be to get the subdistrict to be consistent with what our proposed use is and also what the existing use on the property is today. The owners of the property, Susie and Mike Graham, are here today, along with Krista Story, who's helping us with this project, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the project.
Commissioner Capps?
Yes, so connecting to sewer is going to be in the future.
If we were to do a redevelopment plan, yes, sir, that would be part of the plan, would be to have a lift station that would tie into municipal sewer.
But it's not the plan for Florida's RV park presently.
Yes, sir, it could be. Yeah,
It could be.
It would require a site plan approval to make any changes to the plan right now, and so part of that site plan change would be that we have a use that's consistent with the subdistrict.
Okay, you mentioned redevelopment. By going from general to corridor, I understand we need to do that in order to be able to do RVs, and I'm good with that. But does that also bring additional development rights that might not currently exist? Like next year, could they do away with the RV park and put in condos?
I'm not sure about the residential uses. I do know that the general and the general subdistrict and the corridor subdistrict, I believe Mr. Sennett did have a slide up that showed the difference in uses there. So there are different uses that are allowed in the different subdistricts. I'm not sure if condos are allowed in the corridor or not. I don't. The density for this property, I believe, is capped at 10 units per acre, whether it's RVs or whether it's multifamily or something else. So it's that density is going to be capped.
So what do you think about that? Like, could there be like unintended consequences? Like, I'm cool with having an RV park in Hobe Sound. I think we need one. And these people have done a great job. cleaning this one up, and they're great community partners, and they have done, they're a major part of our community now, and there's a big demand for RV parks. But I'm just thinking about the changing nature of parcels, and like, say they sold it 2 years from now, would there be some increased property rights that would go along with this change that could bring unintended consequences? I'm just trying to think down the road.
Potentially, both the existing general subdistrict and the corridor subdistrict allow for a variety of permitted uses, from residential to commercial. And I'm trying to find that slide I have here about development standards. So both the proposed corridor and the existing general, they have the same maximum residential density, 10 units per acre, same building coverage, same height, same minimum open space. So you could make the argument that even their existing general subdistrict would allow the owners, or if they were to sell it, they could potentially do a more intense development than a recreational vehicle park.
But that right would exist under either
Correct.
sub-district. Is that the right word?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Well, I would move approval. I think and I would also say that we appreciate all you've done for Hobe Sound, cleaning up that park and making it so nice, and being a good community partners in our town. So thank you, and I'll make that motion.
Ms. Elder?
Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney. Just a point of clarification, the sub-district did change the zoning in 2020, and it does not allow RV parks, but RV parks were not permitted before that, so I just want the record clear on that point.
Commissioner Vargas?
Yeah, so I understand that this was not a permitted park initially. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe and the applicant can clarify if they'd like to, but I believe the use of the property dates back to the 1970s when it was a mobile home park. And I think recreational vehicles have been on the property for some time now. I think around the hurricanes in 2004, 2005, there was a transition to more of a recreational vehicle park use, but there's no site plan that's been approved by Martin County
Right, it
for that
wasn't an
development.
official, now we are this, as opposed to that. You mentioned about lift station tying into the sewer. Who pays for that?
The applicant would pay for that.
I saw her doing this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The applicant would be responsible for constructing the lift station and then tying in, and then they would be responsible also for the maintenance of it as well. And that would be South Martin Regional Utilities.
And the stormwater system, too.
We would have to improve the stormwater, yes, ma'am. Currently, there's no stormwater really on the property right now, and any kind of new site plan would have to be brought up to today's code.
Okay. You know, Hobe Sound, you had to be very gentle with that community, and I get it totally as a Floridian. It's like opposite ends of the county. You've got Jensen Beach, Rio, and you have Hobe Sound. They're kind of cousins. They kind of look sort of like each other, but not quite. So we're very protective.
I would also like to point out that this application did go to the Hobe Sound NAC on November 13th of last year, and they spoke favorably of this application and the owner's long-term vision for the site.
Commissioner Campy?
Thank you very much. The things that stand out to me is that with the ability to make this change, you could go from a package plant, which is your current septic management system, to a lift station, to municipal sewer. That alone is well worth it. The fact that you were operating a business that had the underlying the underlying use changed, this became an unintended consequence. So yeah, it makes sense that we would allow you to keep doing your business with something. It wasn't like, hey, we just showed up and we want to do this. Well, you can't. Well, we were already doing it, you know? So I would assume that that would have, sort of grandfathered in or gone along with it. And as we heard from both our staff and the applicant's representative, it wasn't in great shape prior to you taking it, and you've improved it, which is what we always would hope for. So, and the fact that, as Commissioner Capps had mentioned, the fear of an unintended consequence, you basically could do now what you would be able to do in the future. So I will second Commissioner Capps' motion. And I thank you for your continuing to do business with Martin County.
Would any member of the public like to address us on this item? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners.
And bringing Krista Story with you doesn't hurt at all either. Good to see you, Miss Story.
Nice to see you.
Brought the closer with you.
We will now take up public hearing quasi judicial 3, which is a public hearing to consider a request to designate a brownfield on 9670 Southwest Marine Way, LLC. And here to present for the county is Jenna Nabe.
She has something to say.
Okay. Commissioner Heatherington.
Yes, this property is related to Ferrera Group, and as a consultant of that, I will be abstaining, recusing myself from the vote. I have filed my Form 8B with the clerk, and therefore I will abstain.
Okay. This is quasi judicial. Ms. Nabi, have you produced all of your records to hand to the clerk?
Yes, ma'am. The agenda item and a copy of my work history has been turned into the clerk.
Terrific. And commissioners, Commissioner Vargas, any ex parte disclosures?
None filed.
Okay.
Was filed.
Commissioner Capps?
If I have any, they have been filed.
I have them and they've been filed. Commissioner Campy?
I've had some and they've been filed.
Commissioner Heatherington?
If any, they've been filed.
And anyone who's going to be providing testimony, please stand and be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And are there any interveners?
No interveners in this.
And new commissioners, this is novel for us. I've never considered a brownfield application.
It's not that typical. Yeah, Stewart is still in, the initial phase because I was inquired about that.
Proceed, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jenna Nabi, Senior Planner with the Growth Management Department, and this is the first public hearing on a request to designate a brownfield by 9670 Southwest Marine Way, LLC. There are 2 required public hearings for this type of request, and the second public hearing will be held on February 11th, 2025. Florida statute section 376.80 outlines the administration process of the brownfield program and states that the jurisdictional local government shall adopt a resolution designating property as a brownfield if the requesting party establishes that all of the necessary criteria have been met during these public hearings. The subject property is located at 9670 Southwest Marine Way in unincorporated Martin County. It's approximately 7.75 acres and has a future land use designation of commercial waterfront and a zoning district of waterfront general commercial. There's currently an approved minor final site plan for the property, and that the approved uses through that site plan include a marine construction equipment warehouse, office building space, a boat ramp, gravel parking, stormwater dry detention, and green space. Florida statute defines brownfield sites as real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by actual or perceived environmental contamination. The applicant has submitted this request to Martin County to designate the property as a brownfield, and they need to establish during these 2 required public hearings that the criteria outlined in the Florida statute has been met for this request. I know that the applicant has a presentation as well where they'll go through those 5 criteria that they must comply with. There are also specific public hearing procedures for these types of requests that the board must follow. The first of which is that there's the 2 required public hearings, and also that one of the 2 public hearings must be held after 5:00 p.m. unless the board by a majority +1 votes to hold that public hearing at a time other than 5:00 p.m. So with that being said, the staff recommends that the board receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report as Exhibit 1, and move that the board hold the second public hearing on this request to designate the property as a brownfield on February 11th, 2025 at 9:00 a.m. or as soon after as the matter may be heard and prior to 5:00 p.m. Also forgot to mention that the Brownfields program is administered through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So that's the agency that oversees this program. And there are state-based financial incentives that are afforded to sites that are designated as brownfields. And I know that the applicant can go into more detail on that, but that concludes staff's presentation, and we're available for any questions.
Ms. Nobby, if the request to hear this, the next one, before 5 o'clock has to be passed by a supermajority, is that because there's an abstention? Is that 3 or 4?
It would be 4 votes.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Ms. Nobby? Applicant? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Capps, you have a question first, sorry.
Just for the public's benefit,
Yes.
I think I'll mention this, and you tell me if I'm right. It's important to remember that this is not an application to build a project.
That's correct.
These folks already have their approvals.
Yes. There is an
So
approved site plan.
the Marine Center or that thing that you described that it's going to be is going to happen one way or the other. So, because the approval's already in place, the purpose of having this land designation as a brownfield is to help the owner get a Florida corporate tax credit. And that is the only issue here associated with this. And, when I was studying this, it was very interesting. I thought, well, we probably need to hear some evidence that there's been contamination here. Where's the science showing this? And that's not our job as a county government. That's for the Department of Environmental Protection to figure out, as to the legitimacy of whether there's actual contamination. That's because they're the ones who are paying for this, not us. So I think it's important just that the public understand what this hearing is all about, what it is and what it is not. So it's not to approve a project. They're trying to get a brownfield designation so that they can get a tax credit, as I understand it.
Yes. Thank you.
Now applicant.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, and county staff. My name is Brett Brumman with the Goldstein Environmental Law Firm. I'm here on behalf of the property owner, 9670 Southwest Marine Way, LLC. As staff mentioned, we're here at the first of 2 public hearings, but I'd like to give a broad overview of the property, its environmental history, and the project, and then I will discuss the 5 criteria for designation that are set forth in the statute. I'll be available to answer any questions. So as staff mentioned, this is a single parcel located on the St. Lucie Canal. It's proposed for a water-dependent use. Due to its location on the canal, it's a fantastic location for an expansion of Ferrera Construction's marine construction operations. But just to start, we are here to request approval of a resolution that would designate this property as a brownfield area, which is the first step in the process of entering into a brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with FDEP. And that is a voluntary cleanup agreement that's required for access to these incentives. And under that agreement, the property owner is agreeing to conduct voluntary cleanup of contamination of issues at the site that it did not cause. So these are environmental issues that existed for a long time, since at least the mid to early 1900s, when the agricultural uses in the area started. So what this resolution would do, if approved, is it would create a brownfield area, which is defined as a contiguous area of 1 or more brownfield sites. Some which may not be contaminated, in this case they are, the property is, and which has been designated by a local government by resolution. So this is the process the legislature created as the first step. It's intended to promote public participation in a program that is, although public record, it's otherwise somewhat opaque. Generally, people are not aware of the site rehabilitation that's going on around them. So this, in exchange for making this a public process, the state grants certain limited incentives that come at no cost to the county. These are funded as Florida corporate income tax credits through the Florida corporate income tax exclusively. Those tax credits are limited. There's an annual cap of $1 million in costs, and that tax credit is equal to about 50% of those costs. So this is also not a grant program. This is a program that requires the property owner to pay for their site rehabilitation costs up front and then apply to the state every year after the fact for that partial reimbursement. So looking at the property redevelopment plans, as mentioned by staff, the development is approved for construction. The site plan is approved. And Ferrera Construction intends to use the property, which is being constructed by 9670 Southwest Marine Way LLC, for a new base of operations for its marine construction arm. The access to the St. Lucie Canal will provide it coast-to-coast access for marine construction equipment to do things like dock construction, bulkheads, dredging, and work like that that is entirely dependent on the water. Specifically proposed here is a 12,000 square foot warehouse, a 7,900 square foot office building, a boat ramp, and a new bulkhead along the canal. This work is expected to create 30 full-time equivalent positions with pay ranging from $20 to $35 an hour, and those positions will consist of dock builders, laborers, equipment operators, and carpenters. Also, the applicant did do a wildlife survey and identified several gopher tortoises that are on the property, so they are in the process of permitting those tortoises for relocation. A letter has been submitted to Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission that confirms there is a reservation for these tortoises. So the relocation work still needs to happen, but the construction will not start until those tortoises are relocated. We hope that construction will start by March 1st, but that's all dependent on when those tortoises can be moved. So looking at the environmental history at this site, agricultural use took place for about 60 years up until 1986, and it resulted in some isolated soil and groundwater contamination, likely as a result of the application of common pesticides and herbicides over time. What we're seeing out there is an area, if you look at the figure towards the bottom of the screen, there are different areas of impacted soil that will be targeted for removal and relocation. Specifically from the dry retention area and the area of the future boat ramp and any area that could be exposed to stormwater infiltration. There's also impacted groundwater that's being monitored for several years. It's located in the north central area of the property. It does appear to be stable and or shrinking, which is our standard for being near the cleanup completion goal. However, here, after construction is complete, that groundwater monitoring will continue for at least 1 year after construction under what's called a post-active remediation monitoring plan. The property owner has also submitted a soil management plan to FDEP, which was approved in November, that describes how the soil will be managed. And in FDEP's response, they approved that soil management plan and required some additional groundwater monitoring wells to be installed post-construction. And the area of the impacted groundwater we're seeing are located generally in this area of the property, north central, with groundwater flow going generally towards the canal. And the idea here is that the new bulkhead will prevent any impacted groundwater from flowing towards the canal at the completed project. So your role here today as the Board of County Commissioners is to confirm that we have satisfied the 5 criteria for designation. Those criteria are, touching on them very briefly, that first, the designation be requested by someone who owns or controls the property. They must also have a redevelopment plan, and they must agree to conduct site rehabilitation. Here, the applicant is the property owner. They do a redevelopment plan as evidenced by their minor site plan approval, and they are already in the process of conducting site rehabilitation as evidenced by their submittal of a soil management plan and the continuation of semi-annual groundwater monitoring while they've owned the property. The second criterion is that the rehabilitation or redevelopment must result in economic productivity and create at least 5 new jobs that did not previously exist. These jobs have to be located on site. They can't be associated with the construction work itself or the rehabilitation work itself. But here the applicant expects to create 30 new jobs with wages ranging between $20 to $35 an hour. And as I mentioned, those jobs will consist of laborers, equipment operators, and dock builders, as well as carpenters. The third criterion for designation is that the redevelopment must be consistent with local comprehensive plan and land development regulations. And again, as evidenced by the county's approval of the minor site plan, we think we've met that criterion. The county's comprehensive plan also does mention brownfields redevelopment and encouraging a designation of brownfield areas. However, I think in this case, it's very clear that this project is generally constructible and permittable for its location in the county. And added to that, this is a heavily water-dependent use, and this location directly on the canal really facilitates that. There are not many other options anywhere else for this project to go. The fourth criterion is that notice must be provided through posting and publication in accordance with statutory requirements. And the applicant must give those receiving notice an opportunity to comment and ask questions. We did that through providing notice of 2 community meetings. We held one back in November. We had no attendees. And we held a second community meeting following announcement at the last Board of County Commissioners meeting. We held that meeting, that community meeting on January 23rd. We had 1 member of the press attend. And that was it. He did not provide many comments, but we discussed the Brownfields program generally and how this project qualifies for it. And finally, the final criterion is that the applicant must provide reasonable assurance that the financial resources to complete the rehabilitation and redevelopment, with the idea here being that FDEP does not want to allow a project into the program when there's no realistic possibility of it being built. Here, the applicant provided a letter certifying that they do have the financial resources available to complete the project. The applicant is also affiliated with Ferrera Construction Company, which has had immense success with redevelopment projects both locally and nationwide. So that just bolsters the ability for this applicant to complete their own redevelopment project here. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Vargas?
What is the cost to clean up this property? You must have a number in mind. An actual number, not made up.
Yes, Commissioner. So I believe the soil management costs alone, those I believe, based on the budget that we were provided, those would be about $300,000 for the soil management costs. The groundwater monitoring program, I don't have a number for that, but that will continue for at least 4 quarters post-construction. That's typically less than $100,000, in the range of the tens of thousands of dollars, but the soil management will be the biggest component of this redevelopment and cleanup project.
So do you have a number for that?
I think it will be, I don't have an exact number, but I think it's in the range of about $300,000.
The 300,000. And then this company is applying to the state fund for the Brownfields Grant Program funds. Is that correct?
So they would be applying for the voluntary cleanup tax credit program.
Yes?
And that is not a grant program, it's a Florida corporate income tax. So if they say were to incur that full, for example, if they were to incur that full $300,000 in the year 2025, they would be eligible for a $150,000 Florida corporate income tax credit.
Right, 50%. Okay. And what is the maximum on this program?
Per year, there is a cap per site of $1 million in costs. And this program, the legislature recently tripled the funding from $10 million a year to $35 million a year, as evidence as to how popular this program is statewide for projects like this.
So is there a limit on the number of years that they have to complete the project to clean up? Is it 4 years, 3 years?
There is no limit on the number of years. However, there is a bonus tax credit available for completing your project. So when the state issues your site rehabilitation completion order, you're eligible to receive a bonus of 25% of your previously incurred costs or previously approved costs up to $2 million. So that's another maximum of a $500,000 tax credit as a goal for you to complete your project.
Okay. So the tax credits are derived from imputing tax on other corporations. Is that what I'm understanding within the state of Florida? And that's where they pull the funds from?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. The Florida corporate income tax credit or Florida corporate income tax funds the program, and these tax credits are issued. So a company can use it to defer their own corporate income tax, or they could be transferred to an entity that can.
Yes, right. Exactly. I understand what you're saying. So when you're cleaning, it's 2, 3, 4 years, 10 years?
I think that is unlikely. Very unlikely. Here, we want to get the project built, and building the project is part of the remedy.
All right. How are you certain that the property has been cleaned to the capacity that's required before beginning construction?
So that will be a determination for FDEP. The property owner does have a team of professionals that it's overseeing and reporting the work to DEP. Ultimately, the determination will be based on the data. So we'll know that the rehabilitation project is complete once all impacted soils are not nobody can access them, will be exposed to those contaminants, and that the groundwater contaminants are stable, the plume is stable and/or shrinking. And that's a determination made by DEP after reviewing all of the available data.
Commissioner Capps?
Yeah, so this is kind of a academic question, but I think I heard these words initially by Ms. Nobby. Actual or perceived contamination? I was just curious, what would be an example of a situation where somebody could get a brownfield designation and a tax credit for perceived contamination instead of actual contamination?
Thank you, Commissioner. That is a great question, and one that we work in that area a lot, that arena a lot. So typically, we would say there was perceived contamination if a developer, maybe a prospective purchaser, they haven't purchased the property, or they just recently purchased the property, and they found through, say, a Phase 1 environmental site assessment that, for example, that the property was a historical orange grove. Orange groves are associated with localized arsenic contamination because of arsenical pesticides that used to be sprayed on the plants, or if an area, there's say a shed on the property for mixing, but no data has been collected yet, so nobody's gone out there to take soil borings or groundwater, put in groundwater monitoring wells. So we don't know if there's contamination there yet. So you can go prospectively and request a designation based on the suspicion that something might be there. If you ultimately find nothing, great, you're done, you can move on. But if you do find something, then you're able to enter into that cleanup agreement immediately with the state without needing to come back and go through this public hearing process again.
Interesting, thank you.
Any further questions?
We're getting down to the nitty-gritty.
We are. Commissioner Campy?
Thank you. As our chair said, we don't do these every day. Between Ms. Nobby and you, you've educated us on how the process works. It seems relatively straightforward. I don't have an issue with your company, the person that hired you to get a tax credit for doing a cleanup so close to a sensitive environmental waterway. If you were not willing, the company was not willing to take on this endeavor, it would just sit. And as the rain continues to fall on the property, it would continue to wash in. So that alone, for me, gives me a reason to think that this is the right project. Knowing Ferrara, that the concern of like, hey, someone would take this on and it's bigger than they thought they could handle, I'm pretty sure it's not bigger than they can handle. And in terms of would they move at a rapid pace, yes, because they're not just cleaning it up to leave it alone. They're cleaning it up to turning it into a sort of a launch point for their marine business. So I'm sure they'll work as quickly as possible because they're not just starting the marine business either. So with all of those favorables, I would make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Would any member of the public like to address us on this matter? Seeing none? Commissioner Capps?
Second.
Any further discussion? There's a motion and a second to approve the project, to approve the staff's recommendation.
The-
All-
Oh, sorry, the motion is to continue, to have the next hearing before 5 o'clock, and then you'll vote on the designation at the next hearing.
Okay.
And if we,
Just that,
and if
not
we
that.
receive a majority vote, a supermajority, we can hear it before 5:05.
Correct, correct.
So we'll see if we get that. But yes, to what you said, staff's recommendation was that we would move it to whatever you said.
February 11th.
Oh, okay, so to clarify, we are just moving
Correct.
this particular issue to the next meeting. We are not voting on this today.
We're voting on moving it to the next.
I understand that, but I'm saying we're not voting on what you said initially to approve this.
Right.
It's,
Well, I would do that too, but if I can't, I won't.
it's a second public hearing, so it's not a continuation. It's just moving to hold the second public hearing before 5 o'clock.
Right,
on
or majority before. Okay.
So I'll second that one.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes 4-0 with Commissioner Hetherington abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we now will move to Department 1, which is Stephanie Murley's department, Office of Management and Budget items which require board approval. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephanie Murley, Director of OMB, here to present today's OMB item. I have 9 items on the agenda today. Our first item is a permission to apply for the FY 2022 Federal Transit Administration 5339 Bus and Bus Facilities Formula Grant. Our Transit Department is requesting application to assist in the purchase of a replacement fixed route service bus in the amount of $118,557, and there would be no cash match required for that. Our second item is a permission to apply for the 2024 Call for Proposals for Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, the Watershed Planning Program. Our Public Works Department is requesting $400,000 for a stormwater master plan in the proposed watersheds of South Fork of the St. Lucie River, Roebuck Creek, and Fern Creek. These projects will address flood protection, resiliency, and water quality. A $100,000 grant match would be required for this, which is already budgeted within our Stormwater Master Plan CIP sheet. Our third item is a permission to apply for the FY 2025 Small County Outreach, or the SCOP grant, through FDOT for the Southeast Palm Beach Road resurfacing project. Our Capital Projects Division and Public Works is requesting a grant award in the amount of $1,096,572 for the milling and resurfacing of Southeast Palm Beach Road from Southeast Monterey Road to Southeast Ocean. There would be a grant match required for the balance of the project in the amount of $365,525, which will be programmed within the FY 2027 Capital Improvement Plan Roads Program. Item number 4 is a permission to apply for the FY 25 SCOP grant through FDOT for a Southwest Sand Trail and Southwest Sand Avenue resurfacing project. Public Works is requesting a grant award in the amount of $972,543 for the milling and resurfacing of Southwest Sand Trail to Southwest Sand Avenue from Martin Downs Boulevard. This would require a grant match for the balance of the project of $324,186, which will be programmed within the FY 27 Roads Program CIP as well. Item number 5 is a permission to accept the Florida Department of Children and Families, or DCF, Court Diversion Program Grant. Our Human Services Department is requesting the acceptance of a grant award in the amount of $376,200 to support Martin County's mental health court staff and services. This better serves a high-needs population with co-occurring mental illnesses and substance abuse disorders to help connect them with the services they need, and there is no cash match required for this grant. Item number 6 is a permission to accept the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, grant for the Martin County Bessie Creek retrofit project. Our Public Works is requesting the acceptance of a grant in the amount of $500,000 to fund the design and permitting of the Martin County Bessie Creek retrofit. This will increase stormwater conveyance and capacity and mitigate future flood events. And there would be no cash match required, and OMB is requesting the amendment of the CIP to show the grant revenues.
Want to talk now?
Yes.
Commissioner Campy.
I just wanted to take a moment. I know you had 9 of these, and they're all important to somebody, but this is a huge, huge event on our, in Palm City. This is something that Public Works and myself and others and the community have been working on for a long time. And this is a huge amount of money towards our goal. It's a multi-million-dollar project, $500,000 with no match. Not only does it clean up water through the area, it creates a lot of drainage corrections and management, and I could not be happier with our staff for not only doing the project, but finding clever and creative ways to have funding come from outside of our county to help pay for it. Job well done.
Thank you. Item number 7 is permission to accept the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Grant to extend and expand the Taxiway A Hold Bay design. Our airport is requesting the acceptance of a grant award for $144,400, and it requires a match of approximately $3,800 to come from our Airport Enterprise Fund, which is budgeted within our airport CIP. Item number 8 is a request to allocate a contribution for the Southeast Lerner Road, Southeast Cable Drive Turn Lane project. In accordance with the development order issued to the property owner of the vacant land north of Southeast Lerner Road, the developer has contributed funds in the amount of $159,743.25 to construct an eastbound left and westbound right turn lane within Southeast Lerner Road right-of-way access for the Hunter Lake subdivision, and OMB is requesting the adoption of a budget resolution in order to allocate these funds in the budget. And last but not least is a request to amend the Hoke Library Outdoor Space Capital Improvement Plan sheet. The proposed Hoke Library Outdoor Space will feature lighting, seating, and Americans with Disabilities Act accessibility to support a variety of activities. We are requesting that we allocate library impact fees due to the increase in the cost of materials associated with the construction of this project. There are funds available within the Library Impact Fee Fund, and OMB is just requesting the amendment of that CIP sheet to recognize those library impact fees. And that's all I have today.
Questions?
I'll move staff's recommendation for approval.
Second.
Any further questions? There's a motion and a second to approve Department 1. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is Department 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval of $1 million or more, and Christy Brotherton will present.
Good afternoon. I have one item for your consideration today. Again, Christy Brotherton, Chief Procurement Officer. This is a change order for the Southwest Waterside Way and State Road 76 Canner Highway roadway construction project. The purpose of this change order is it addresses additional work items that were not anticipated in the original project scope. This includes extensive excavation to remove unsuitable soil material within the roadway limits, as well as adjustments for other unforeseen conditions and minor scope quantity modifications. Staff is recommending that the board approve change order number 2 to CW Roberts Contracting in the amount of $711,004.59, excuse me, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
That's nice.
Why isn't the South Florida Gateway PUD paying for this improvement?
George Zama, Martin County Public Works Deputy Director. This material is from a lake that's shared. It's a shared stormwater pond by both the county and the PUD, and we were hoping that the material would be suitable, but for the roadway, but for the long-term longevity of the roadway, we opted to stockpile the material for our future site, which is required to have a vegetative privacy berm, so it will be used in the future for the county.
Jim Gordon, Public Works Director. The purchase agreement that we had for that property included the requirement that the county construct that right away. So we got a discount on the property per acre, but we had to build the roadway to access our property. So Waterside Way was a requirement of our purchase agreement.
So what kind of a discount did we get? Because it looks to me like providing the right-of-way is costing us $5 million.
It was, I don't have those figures with me.
I don't think it was a bargain.
Yeah, it was, if you remember, we did purchase that property at a time where real estate was pretty volatile, and we did get a discount at the time, but I don't know that it was, $5 million discount, but it was the reason this roadway has to be built the way that it is because we're going to put our heavy trucks, this is where our operations are going to go. So we had to really engineer this roadway to accept our trucks. So that they're going to have dump trucks, heavy loaders, as well as the vehicles coming out of the Karis Coal building as well, which is reefer trucks, refrigerated tractor trailers that are beginning using that roadway. So it's a really industrial roadway that we built that'll hold up over time.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is Department 3, a request to discuss a text amendment to the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan revising industrial future land use designation. Mr. Doolin.
Good afternoon, members of the board. As the executive summary describes, the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan in the industrial future land use designation currently provides the option of permitting freestanding industrial urban service districts outside the primary and secondary urban service districts. The board has directed staff to bring forward this agenda item to present and consider the initiation of a text amendment to the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan that would take that text found in the comprehensive plan currently out of the plan and remove that as an option. Staff seeks direction on the attached resolution to initiate an amendment to the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan.
I requested this. We received the results of a 2023 commercial and industrial needs analysis that clearly found that no additional industrial or commercial lands need to be designated in Martin County, that we have enough for the very, very far future. And freestanding urban service boundaries deplete resources and revenues at an astonishing rate, and also they prohibit planning. If they can happen anywhere in Martin County, then we cannot plan for the necessary urban services to provide for them. So it's an important planning and resource and funding protection for us. Commissioner Campy.
I'm a bit confused in regards to your desire, Madam Chair. Is it to somehow manage the existing ones, or is it to make sure that we don't create another one?
We can't do anything with the ones that are already designated. My desire is to prohibit designating future freestanding urban service boundaries because they're terrible for the county.
Understand. My concern when I use the term managing existing ones, for an example, if there was hypothetically one of these that had made sold off a portion of its property on one side of the property to a governmental entity for environmental benefit, and then was able to purchase directly adjacent to it on the other side, not exactly apples for apples, the acreage, but we're talking less than 250 acres. I think we should allow them to include the new purchase of property that's adjacent to their freestanding urban service district, because they did, all right, here it is. Can you make it larger, enlarge it?
Certainly. I think what Mr. Campy is referring to, Commissioners, is that we have currently an application in to expand the AgTech freestanding urban service district, where the cursor is shown right there.
Do you have the ability to switch that to a satellite view, please?
I can go to the map.
Thank you.
Oh,
That's, all. Yeah, just that version is fine. I'm very familiar with this portion of property. It was recently sold to the folks that own this, the Martin Triangle. It's, if you could move that white box out of the way, thanks. It's got a very large lake in the more usable portion, and you can see as it heads north, it gets very narrow and be nearly impossible to use. And then if you can look at the construction on the western side of this property, they sold property to South Florida Water Management District to continue to create the connector between the C-23 and the C-44. I know that this property, I'm calling it the Triangle, their goal is to include it in to that. I don't want to create a situation where they would not be allowed to do that. But I hear your point about not creating an additional freestanding urban service districts. I'm not opposed to that. I just would want to make sure that we didn't hamstring existing owners of the ones that, 7J's, South Florida Gateway. I keep calling this by its old name. What do they call this now? AgTech is Martin Commerce. And I said 7J's, didn't I? Well, anyway, those. Your point is to create a moratorium that we're not going to do that again, I'm with you. I just want to be able to continue to allow these folks the opportunity to manage their properties right within these specific locations to the best benefit, because if they benefit, we benefit. This is not residential. This is industrial. I think at least on these two locations that I'm more familiar with in my district, we are poised to see a terrific opportunity that we have been waiting for all the way back to the days when AgTech was originally created. There were some global issues that made success here, in particular during the AgTech days, much more difficult. Originally, when it was done, they had the recession, and then there was a majority philosophy switch on the board for 4 years, and then the property was put for sale and sold, and then there was a global pandemic. So I think finally, all the planets have aligned to have the right owner of that property and the right climate here to make this a success for us. Directly next to 95, doesn't really, not that obtrusive, already exists. So I would hope that we would leave those kind of details on the table, but I'm not opposed to moving forward on your vision of, no, we're not going to create more of these.
That's exactly what this item is supposed to do, is supposed to give Mr. Doolin clear direction on what is going to be pursued. I would certainly support not creating any new freestanding urban service boundaries because for the reasons that I stated. However, 3 votes carries anything. So if 2 other commissioners support you, then Clyde probably will prepare some options for us. Right?
yes.
Commissioner Hetherington.
Clyde, can you put the language on the screen that if you were proposing to remove freestanding urban service boundaries, what language would you be striking out of the comprehensive plan?
Well, there's no strike and underline proposed here at this point. This is the language from the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan describing the industrial future land use designation. The areas in shaded, or the text shaded, is the language that gives the ability to create a freestanding urban service district. So this language would at the minimum be modified, if not stricken.
So if you have a consensus, you're going to bring us back more language?
If this resolution is adopted today, this language would come back with a staff analysis and a staff report with proposed changes to this text to, and conceivably, there could be options as well to either eliminate this text completely or offer a revised text that has some other options, such as not permitting new freestanding urban service districts, but permitting perhaps the expansion of existing ones, if that's an option that the board wishes to entertain.
Or that don't increase the size of the existing designated freestanding urban service district, which is, I believe, what Commissioner Campy was suggesting.
Mine would require a bit of an extension because what they gave back on the western side for the canal, for the connector, is not exactly, A for A. It would be classified as an expansion, but I think under the set of circumstances that I mentioned, being upfront, that's what they're looking to do there. But if it's 225 on the eastern side and it was 118 or whatever on the western side, I'm talking it's connected and it makes sense. I'm not talking about if it's 1,500 acres and then the next door neighbor has 1,000, now it's 2,500 acres. I think that the word expansion would have to have a definition. Even if you wanted to make it a limit, but you wouldn't want to make it impossible for these owners. Like, for instance, where we were just talking about where we're putting our maintenance facility, we maneuvered a little bit there because if you remember, the original entrance and exit for that industrial park was going to be on 96th Street, and we swapped out some land from 96th Street and put the entrance on Canner where it made more sense. It was good for the county, but it was also good for the owner of the property. We would want maybe to say expansion to X amount of acres, not to the point where you've opened Pandora's box and it's 1,000 acres. But if you wanted to say, you were maneuvering a little bit, give a little bit of flexibility into the future versus saying absolutely nothing.
Commissioner Vargas.
Okay, so there's clarity on this. We are going to be voting on cease permitting freestanding urban service districts. But if you start to say, well, just a little bitty this way and that way, then who makes that definition as to what's good enough for that particular owner to be able to spread further out?
3 votes.
Yeah, I get that. But who makes the decision? Is it just one person professing this right now and the wonderfulness of this? Or is it something we really have to think about? Because it has just been on a tear here in Martin County. And I heard this recently. I don't know my fellow commissioners if they've been out there really talking with people and how delighted they are with what's happening with Martin County. So we have to be very vigilant in how we're voting. This is not just our county, it is of the people, and we have thousands of bosses out there. We do. And they have been strong, and they made a statement this last November, loud and clear.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I was going to say, I think this board always takes things on a case-by-case basis, which is the way I favor doing things. But if there are applications in that you just mentioned and those predated this conversation, wouldn't it be incumbent upon us to hear those items prior to making a change?
Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney, you can grandfather in the existing applications, so it wouldn't impact them, and that would be a smart move because they have the property.
And the board would still hear that application, but any changes prior to that application moving forward would not be applicable.
It would be retroactive. It would be prospective, so an existing application would be able to expand if they're in already, but new applications would not, and that's how we would word the proposed.
Freestanding urban services boundary. I mean, it would be a new application for, right now we have 4 freestanding urban services boundaries. Would this triangle piece be number 5?
No, we look at it as a proposed expansion of the existing one.
Okay. But it's it's being brought at a different time for a different property boundary, how would it not be construed as number 5?
I'll go back to the map. It's adjacent to, and it has, and they're seeking the same land use designation as the existing property. This property hatched, where my cursor is, has the AgTech future land use designation currently. The applicant is seeking to expand that designation onto this property and change the name of it all at the same time. So they're seeking 2 amendments, 1, a future land use map amendment, and 2, an expansion of the freestanding urban service district onto this triangular property. So it's conceived of and considered simply an expansion of the existing.
And then I'm trying to get my head around, are we voting here now on the actual substantive issues or just a resolution to initiate, or as opposed to the actual substantive issues? I mean,
Latter. You're voting on the latter, to initiate an amendment, and then the details of the proposed text would come forward to you at a later time.
The board is,
It's the former.
okay.
the board is being asked to give input in what you want in the ordinance that will come forward that will restrict these freestanding industrial service
Okay.
districts.
So this is not a final determination on the issue. It's kind of,
We're asking for direction on what the board prefers in the ordinance.
okay.
Well, are we asking for options about what we might consider?
Correct. Or that, yes, whatever you want us to put in the ordinance, we could put options, we could put one thing, it's at the board's desire, whatever you prefer.
Commissioner Campy,
Does Mr. Donaldson have something I need to hear first?
maybe?
Mike?
Just add briefly to the conversation is, and one is Commissioner Capps and your question regarding is, even if it's attached to adjacent property, is that a freestanding or is it just an expansion of the existing freestanding? That ultimately can also be part of the definitions in the code that are written. So, in other words, if it's as aggregated properties that are contiguous, could be considered a one freestanding definition, or you could write your definition that every individual property, whether it's attached or not, could be considered its own freestanding. I think that gets more complicated, I think, but staff is saying that for us, the logical attachment would be that if they're all contiguous and touching, we would consider it one. That would be, I think, the way staff would look at it, but you could write the definition differently. The other thing is that today is simply direction on initiating the actual writing of the code before it comes back. And the more specificity you all give us, or the more ideas that you put in there, it enables us to be a little more precise in what we're writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I see the 2 points here. One, to Commissioner Hurd's original comments from a couple of meetings ago, and what she said today is obviously looking to stop any new ones. This particular case, this example that we're using, there was a contraction of this property, of the freestanding urban service district. I don't know what level of contraction it was. Do you guys know what they sold off?
110-ish?
It was this big piece of property, and it was from north to south, so.
I've been told it's approximately 100 acres, but I don't have the
Okay,
exact.
so, well, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, I get that if we left open the language of expansion, that could be too open, I'm assuming for you, too wide open.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that being said.
Solid no.
Yeah. So I'm trying in my head to come up with a acreage number that would be palatable for my colleague, that would allow some flexibility of these existing property owners, that is not creating a level of uncomfortableness for my colleagues, because I get what the overall goal is here. So I would put on the table,
I was going to say a percentage would work well, depending on how big the property is.
well, what are is this the largest of them four?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and what is
By
this?
far.
1,700 acres?
Currently 1,700 acres, yes.
Okay, so a percentage or a number of, six of one, half dozen of another. All I would like to see is if they gave up 110 on the left, that they would be able to include this. Now, I think this is 200. Did you show what it was on that? Did it say 200 and something?
The acreage is around 200 acres.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would feel, remember also that this has a 50-acre lake on it, which is, unless you're going to paddle around in the water, it's not usable. And then it narrows some of this way to the top. You can see how narrow it gets. So a lot of that is not usable either. So if my colleagues would agree, if we set like a 250-acre maximum on the 4 urban, freestanding urban service districts, I think that would allow some reasonable flexibility for tweaking without it turning into a situation where they're actually adding extra.
Commissioner Vargas?
Yes, what about a percentage? Rather than labeling acreage? I mean, we've made our points here today, and I think that we need to stop designating freestanding urban service districts. You're talking about joining property that's surrounding it. Why does it have to be 250 acres? What's that number? Okay, why don't we do a percentage?
All right, so if this is 1,700 acres,
It's now 1,600. It was 1,735 initially.
Gave up.
And now it's something
100.
less than that. So 16, let's call it 1,630.
so then 10 would make it 160. How about 15%?
10%.
10% doesn't do it.
Percent.
What?
Percent.
Percent. This is, well, so let me
Well,
also.
that's what I'm just trying, obviously what I'm trying, I'm not disagreeing with you. I get that we're not going to have any new ones. That's fine.
So Clyde needs direction here. So we also have to be concerned about the blob that ate Martin County. So let's say you add on another 150 acres. Then can you add on another percentage?
No, I said
after that?
maximum.
So you get one little bitty add-on, and then you're out.
Maximum.
You have to give them a consolation, percentage, 10%. 10% works across the board for a lot of business
Doesn't fit
dealings.
what he's looking to do right here, though.
It may not, but it's, I'm sorry, but it's like the chairwoman said, the blob that ate Martin County. I mean, that's a good way of putting it. We don't have to be fancy about this. But I haven't been on the commission that long, so we have to look to the previous commission.
And I'm one of them.
You are.
I appreciate that. So I am only looking to, this is already in the pipeline, correct? This is an application that's in. So if they wanted to turn this into a legal matter, this is already filed as an application. I'm just saying that into the future, if we just cover these kind of situations, and the percentage works better because if this is the largest one and there's a smaller one and you do set acreage, that could be a lot. I don't mind 15% that covers this. He could come in 3 weeks with the application, shows up at a commission meeting, and he's going to get what he wants anyway. I'm just looking that we can layer it into what we're discussing today, give staff very specific detail to move forward, so when they come back, we're not having this conversation again.
Commissioner Heatherington?
I would favor grandfathering the one applicant in and then having a percentage. And just for clarification, so freestanding urban service boundary only applies to industrial property, right?
Correct.
So if a future commission, 10, 12 years, this is all developed, decides that they don't want to base their, have their tax base as heavily dependent on residential, then it would take a text amendment to
Correct.
change where industrial, unless it was inside the urban service boundaries. Would either take an urban service boundary change or to establish a new industrial freestanding urban, it would require repealing this text amendment or doing something additional.
That's correct.
So we're basically definitely tying the hands of a board from 15 years from now.
Correct. Unless they
Unless they
Initiate a new text amendment and amend it.
Create a new text amendment to allow this.
That happens, it's happening right this minute. A past board created a plan that very, soon after there was a majority shift is changing. I'm willing to, I have a plan. Madam Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
This application is already in, so we could basically leave this one alone. I think that if we created a situation where the 4 existing freestanding urban service districts are what they are, and we're not looking to, what's the word, moratorium for new ones, or prohibition of new ones, whatever wordsmithing you come up with the ability to have, as Commissioner Vargas said, a 10% contiguous expansion. So on one that's 200 acres, you're only getting 20. On this one, you could only get extra 10%.
Commissioner Vargas?
Yes, definitely. I think that is sufficient. Again, there are other places that can be developed, county to the south, county to the north, counties to the north, counties to the west, but this is Martin County. And I think we have to be very, very correct with what the voices spoke loud and clear. This needs to cease. And, the thing is that you can always come back and request an amendment. It does not mean that you cannot. Is that correct?
If in the future someone wanted to create a freestanding urban service district, they would have to first do a text amendment to put in language similar to what's in there now, and then another amendment to establish it someplace.
Okay, so there are possibilities, maybe.
Always, yeah.
Correct.
Well, I'll end on the note that our chair started with. We did a study that said there is now, with these 4, plenty of acreage available for us to have all we wanted in terms of economic development and expansion of this type of business. And I don't disagree with that. Plus, the way that they're located, someone's coming forward. The way that they're situated in the county does give you some coverage as well. They're not all in the south or the west or the north. So let's hear what this guy has to say.
Mr. Capps?
For clarity, so what we're passing here today is no new ones and 10% expansion of existing ones only.
No, the existing.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think what you're giving us direction to do is initiate an amendment,
Right.
and we're taking the board direction, the options, the discussion here as our direction to then formulate a staff report with options for you. And I think we have a number of options that you've mentioned that we can bring forward in a staff analysis, and you can select from them or you can expand upon them at a future date.
So a couple of them that I've heard thus far, a couple of these options, would be no new ones and 10% expansion of existing ones only. And have there been any other options presented at this point?
I've heard here mentioned grandfathering the existing application.
Well, that's given. That has nothing to do with what you're doing.
Okay, grandfathering, ACTAC. Anything else? Have we deciphered anything else as far as giving staff direction?
I think it's pretty cut and dry at this point.
Okay. So we're not really voting on the substance of these issues right now?
Correct, you're not.
Okay.
Mr. Donaldson?
No, I don't need to weigh in. You covered it. Thank you.
Don't tread over here.
Sausage here.
Good job, Lee.
Mr. Stolfi, would you like to address us?
Thank you. For the record, I'm Ted Astolfi, CEO of the Economic Council of Martin County. Thanks for the opportunity. I hear what you're saying. I'm very happy about the expansion opportunity. I understand that the motivation, Commissioner, about not wanting these everywhere. I can appreciate that as a long-term resident here. I just want to be clear on a couple things. I think we started off this conversation at where this discussion came up. It started off with, we don't want more rural lifestyle freestanding urban service district. Then it became any urban service district. Now it's back to just industrial. And so I get a little concerned when we focus in on industrial. That, in my opinion, is kind of the goose that laid the golden egg of taxes for Martin County. I'm not saying we should proliferate them everywhere, but I liked what I heard from Commissioner Heatherington about a case-by-case basis to make sure they're kind of in the right locations. There's a lot of conflicting information in your comp plan, as you know, about where industrial should go. It should be near I-95. The urban service boundary isn't anywhere near I-95. We don't necessarily want to, I don't want to see it expanded out there. So I don't want to see us tie the hands of our future by just ruling them out completely on the industrial. I do also have to say that I fought very hard with this study, this commercial industrial inventory analysis that was done. And I would ask you to, I don't think you probably have it with you, Clyde, but I would ask you to bring that back to the next meeting and read the conclusion of that document. I take great exception to the fact that we use the same methodology you had done previously with that study, and it ties the demand for industrial property to residential growth. Those two things are completely different from each other. That's not the way you determine industrial property needs. Industrial properties don't create commercial demand that needs population growth. The idea of industrial business growth is to grab those contributory businesses, sell products outside the area, and putting those near major corridors like I-95 and the Turnpike makes sense because those products get developed here and sent back out, and you keep that traffic off the inside of that urban service area. So I understand the motivation. I'm a little concerned that we're only looking at an industrial. You stop talking about all the others. So we're not stopping the proliferation of freestanding urban service boundaries. We're just stopping the development of new or major expansion of existing freestanding urban service industrial specifically for industrial.
Just going step by step.
So the
Only one that allows them.
what's that?
It's the only land use that allows freestanding urban service districts.
Oh, I thought we had rural lifestyle
No, that can be next to it. That can be adjacent.
within a mile.
It's not a, it's
Whatever.
It's not a
urban
freestanding.
boundary.
It's not a freestanding urban service boundary.
No.
It's a special land use.
It's
Okay,
a land use designation, not a.
gotcha.
freestanding.
Thank you. Okay, I made my point. Thank you.
Commissioner Vargas.
I have a question. Ms. Elder, does this not set a precedent if we're deciding case by case?
So right now, you do decide, in essence, case by case as applications come forward based on the comprehensive plan. It's a legislative decision. So that's what we're doing right now. What the proposal will do is we'll take that option away, and you won't be able to decide it at all because they won't be able to come forward. So that's the distinction. Right now, under our comp plan, we can have them. It's a legislative decision by the board. You can determine on a case-by-case basis whether it's warranted. The proposed will not allow you to determine that any longer. It'll be, the option will be taken away, pretty much.
So this is one of those questions that no means yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So can you go in the voting booth? Focus. Okay.
Do you have clear direction?
We do.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, please.
I would make a motion that we send staff off with the direction to make the 4 freestanding urban service districts that we have, the 4, not look to include any new ones, and that those 4 would have the opportunity, if they even wanted, to increase no more than 10%, ever. One time. Not one time, but no more than 10%. I think it's as simple as that.
Okay.
So it's a yes?
Well, that's a motion.
I believe
this?
the request is to, the resolution was just simply to annex the text amendment, and then to incorporate all of the comments that the commission did during the discussion.
Okay.
Do you want me to say it again?
So it's a two-parter.
Move that the board adopt the attached resolution to initiate a text amendment to policy 4.13A.10 of the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan with the criteria that the 4 will be the only 4 and that the existing 4 can have no more than 10% increase.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I thought we were having a group.
Yes.
I'll second it because, just for clarification, we're not actually voting on that policy today. We're voting to have it brought back to us in written form. Is that
Yeah.
basically what we're doing? Okay, I'll second that.
So it'll be absolutely crystal clear when they come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody understand?
See,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
that was painful.
Thank you, members of the board.
Next up is Department 4, which is approval of a preliminary request for proposal as directed by the board on March 5th of 2024 to surplus county property located on Martin Highway in Palm City for sale and redevelopment. Good afternoon, Ms. Segura.
Good afternoon, Carla
Flores.
Segura, Real Property Manager, and I have with me Susan Corres, the Community Development Director. The subject of this agenda item is the property that the county purchased in November of 2023 that is located in Old Palm City. Then it was brought back in March of 2024, where the board directed staff to draft an RFP for review and approval prior to solicitation. Today, we are presenting the draft RFP for approval. Staff has collaborated over the last several months in drafting the RFP pursuant to Florida Statute 163-380, ensuring the proposal for the sale and redevelopment is in the best interest of the public. The proposal is in line with the Old Palm City redevelopment plan and is consistent with Martin County Comprehensive Growth Management and Plan and the Martin County Land Development Regulations. To meet these objectives, the architectural style must comply with Article 12, Divisions 1 and 4, and all proposed developments must include parking in the rear. The design can consist of either one-story or two-story commercials or mixed-use development with a maximum height of 30 feet. The RFP includes several key development objectives, including a landscape buffer along the property line facing Martin Highway that would be consistent with the other properties on that stretch, and an interconnect between Newberry and Palm City School Avenue. Additionally, the selected developer owner will be required to convey at no cost the western portion of the property line to Newberry for drainage and stormwater related to Danforth Creek. The property will be sold to the highest responsive bidder with a minimum bid of $3 million. The county reserves the right to award to a sole proposer, negotiate with the proposer, or re-advertise the RFP without altering the evaluation process, or may choose not to proceed. A selection committee of 5 individuals with government experience will review and rank all qualified proposals. The scoring criteria is listed within the RFP and also in this agenda item. We ask that the board approve the RFP and authorize staff to proceed with advertising. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Questions? Is the entire 5.76 acre parcel for sale?
Yes.
And what's the donated portion on the west of Southwest Newberry Court to the county?
I don't remember the
You know?
exact, it's in there. Let's see. Portion of.
The donated piece would be the donating back to the county for use of stormwater access to the creek.
Yes.
So the entire property's being sold, but we're letting the future purchaser know that there is a part that is unusable to them, and they must donate it back. But
Why
through
didn't
that,
we just redraw the boundaries?
there's an issue that this,
It In order to comply with our subdivision regulations and the LDRs, the only way we could do it is to have them convey it back. Otherwise, it would have to be platted.
Okay.
So it was just an easier course of action.
Okay, do you know how big it is?
0.93 acres.
Oh, so I thought it was about an acre, yeah.
It's just under an acre, and Jim Gorton, Public Works Director.
Yeah.
And the importance to the county is that for the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a project in the CIP to improve Danforth Creek there. And this provides us the property that we need to access Danforth Creek.
Great. Commissioner Vargas.
Okay, so this is the property that the developer paid $2 million for, wanted to put 90 units on the property, and then the development across the way, Danforth, objected. And so the county purchased this property for $4.2 million. Is that correct? Do I have my facts correct here? No.
Not exactly, but very close.
Well, okay, but how much did you pay for the property?
That's the part that you got very close. It's your other
4.1?
comments that I was,
It was 4.2 and slightly over.
Okay, so, all right, so why are you marketing it at $3 million?
The property west of Newberry is worth about 100,000, and no, is it
100,000.
a million? I knew that didn't sound right. It's worth about $1 million. So, in order to get us where we were, so that we're not losing a large amount of money on the purchase and get what we want for the property, development-wise, that was determined the best and least amount we could do.
Yeah, I understand that. Has there been a market analysis done on the property? How can we make the residents of Palm City whole again? I mean, they're paying double taxes, as I'm understanding. Is that correct? Because the bond was floated?
No, there's no double taxation for this particular project and no bond through the CRA, and I don't believe through the county either. So the $3 million would make us whole again.
But you paid over 4.2. So,
But we get back the
Right.
property to the west. And then we sell the property to the rest of the property. So it comes out to about $4 million.
Yeah, so the property was purchased with MSTU funds and CRA funds. And it was the use of those funds plus what was the difference, because there wasn't sufficient funds in both of those. So there was also a loan from our reserves. And so that so the total balance of the property was paid for with Martin County funds that came out of the district funds and the CRA. There's an obligation the board approved that the CRA and the district are obligated to pay that back, and that currently our budget office has tagged all of those, any revenues on those funds are slated for that. Whatever price gets redeemed from the purchase of this, whether it's all or in part, would go back to the county to first pay the reserve funds back, and then any other funds would go back to use for the CRA or the MSTU. If the property was sold at a cost less than what we did, then the MSTU or the CRA would still owe the general fund a payment plan to bring that back, and we would bring that to you after the sale of the property.
oh, okay, but aren't there an additional or a greater line item plus an additional line item on, if I lived in Palm City, on my tax bill?
There's no, what you would see is that it depends on if you lived in the CRA taxes are being collected and the MSTU funds. And so those are both of the funds that were used to use as a funding source to pay off the general fund reserves that were the remaining balance of the funds. But this action here is to take the property which was taken off the rolls and now to put it back on the tax roll, but with sufficient restrictions so that a 90-unit apartment cannot be built there That's part of this RFP. The most important part of this is the restriction so that it is the development that does occur will be limited to something that would fit with the neighborhood.
Yeah, I understand. Have you done a market analysis of this? Because you want to put it back
Right. We did one.
into the inventory.
The property in 2023, we did an appraisal and justification for things because there's an easement for the road to Newberry and all of that. So yes, we have one available.
And what is that?
One was 4 million, one was
Yeah,
4,050,000, the other was 4.5 million.
5, yeah.
Okay. Can you do a more up-to-date?
Yes, we can.
I think that is prudent, because this is not a good deal. This is not a good deal at all.
Keep in mind that this is an RFP that has the minimum offer that is accepted. So this is a competition. It's not that anybody can submit this and it will be accepted. It is what offers would the board, if there are numerous proposals, and we would hope that there are, and only proposals in excess of the minimum bid would be opened for consideration and brought to the board. Those that offer the highest amount would be the one that would be considered unless there's some caveats to it. We would bring that back to the board. So this is just step one. Then there would be an advertisement allowing the private sector to bid on this. And then after that time, we would open the bids and bring back any offers with recommendations that are in excess of the $3 million.
Okay. Who decided on the $3 million figure?
It was with staff and the district commissioner looking at the total value of the property, less the use of the property from Public Works.
So why don't you raise the minimum? Because you can always decrease what you're asking, but it's very hard to increase when you're negotiating with somebody.
Again, we work
An
with the
entity?
district commissioner to prepare an RFP that we brought here today.
When we
I
get to my
understand.
turn, I'll share some of the information with you.
Okay, well, why don't you share?
I got to wait till it's my turn.
Okay.
Mr.
turn.
Campy.
Here we go. For clarity's sake, for my colleagues that are new, I'm sure you followed along, but being here, it was not only Danforth. This project is unique because the CRA should have basically stayed on Map Road. I consider the CRA to be Main Street zoning. But the commissioner before me, in a very smart strategy to bring Stewart Fine Foods to Palm City, increased the CRA boundary down Martin Highway all the way to Berry, which then allowed for the supermarket to be built there. At the time, back in 2004 or 5, that seemed like a good strategy. The unintended consequence of that is that it brought CRA Main Street zoning, if you will, where you could build directly onto the sidewalk all the way down Martin Highway, which is not a main street. So then, a year and a half ago, early 2023, there was talk that the property was sold for $2.1 million. And someone was going to build about 24, correct me, Ms. Corris, if I'm wrong, cottages, had individual homes, townhomes, had porches and everything else. And the CRA rules would have applied. They spoke to the neighbors behind in Oakbrook, spoke to the neighbors that were affected, Islesworth, Danforth, Hammock Creek, Whispering Sound, Sawgrass Villas, not just Danforth, and everyone was happy. But then the financial people said, wait, we don't want to put porches on them, just like we were having this morning. They balked at some of the CRA guidelines, and they pulled the money. The next version came forward from a group of folks out of South Florida, Boynton or Delray, and their plan was to put 90 apartments in three-story buildings on these. It's called 6 acres, but it's really not 6 acres because there is a right-of-way driveway that takes you from Martin Highway back to Oakbrook, and then everything to the west of that, grass, trees, right up onto Danforth. That was about 2 acres, but it was still considered in the calculation, so it gave the project an additional 30 units. The only way to fit 90 units on 4 acres including all the parking lots and everything else. They are 3-story tall buildings. There are no 3-story tall residential buildings anywhere in Palm City. They would be directly up on the sidewalk because that's the zoning. That's Main Street zoning. So there's no landscape buffers or anything like that. You're looking at a 30-foot tall building directly on the sidewalk, 2 on Martin Highway and 1 on the side street, which is Palm City School Avenue, which is where about 700 kids walk or bike or their parents drive them to school. You would open your front door of your apartment, you would step out onto your porch, you would go down 2 steps, and you'd be on the sidewalk where 700 kids are going back and forth to school. The applicant did not need to come to me as the commissioner because it was a by right project. It was legally permissible. So that meant without any pushback from us, it would be built. You can imagine if that was happening in any of your districts, so completely different of anything that we could do. We discussed for half an hour today about a 32-unit thing on US 1. This is 90 apartments on Martin Highway. And if you say, well, it wouldn't really affect me, well, anyone entering Martin County, you can't get to Jensen Beach or Stewart or, Golden Gate. You got to come either Canner or through Palm City. That's what you would see. We very cleverly, and at the time with Commissioner Hetherington and Commissioner Hurd and the former commissioners, we came up with a strategy. I had put it together with staff. That's the same thing I say to everybody. If you're unhappy with what's happening next to you, the only legal right you have to say something is if you own the property. So it dawned on me that we should try to figure out how to purchase the property. Ms. Corus and I, Mr. Donaldson, Ms. Woods, Ms. Segura, we started to brainstorm, like, how could this happen? It happened, well, it's not the first time it's ever happened. It happened one time up in Jensen Beach, and then at that point, the county even designed, if I'm not mistaken, created what they really wanted it to be, and then they sold off the concept. What we decided to do, now a lot of people said it should be a dog park, it should be this. I know someone wanted 3 or 4 dog parks, or used to bust my chops and say, well, if you do this now, how do you stop this from happening all the time? How is everyone not going to ask to do this? 2 things. Now, yes, the people paid $2 million for the property, and then our staff, Don Donaldson and Ms. Woods, went to meet with them and negotiated. They said they would do it for $4 million. And I think the above $4 million was the closing costs and legal fees or whatever it was, $4 million. So we did an appraisal. The first one came in at $4,050,000, and the second one came in at $4.5 million. If he had asked for $5 million or $6 million or $7 million, we wouldn't have been able to do it, and those apartments would be well under construction right now. They'd be done by now. So we did that. Well, then the commissioners said, well, it's not fair to the people that live in Jensen or in Hobe Sound. Why should they have to pay to stop a project in Palm City? So that's when we said, well, we'll use all of my district funds. You have district funds, all of us do. We'll use exclusively the district funds and the CRA funds from the Palm City CRA, none others. And we went to the NAC board. They were nervous, but they got it. And that's what we did. Now, my goal was never we could afford to pay for it over the next 5 years, all of the CRA funds and the district funds. At the time, I was running for re-election, so I could only commit to 1 year's worth of funds because I cannot encumber future commissioners' funds. Now, I happen to still be here, but even if I wasn't, the CRA and the original money from the district funds would have paid for the loan. The portion that the county needed was the portion that a developer is not going to want anyway. The road to Oak Brook and the environmentally sensitive portion next to Danforth that they couldn't have used anyway. So now we're asking, the reason it says $3 million is because the county paid approximately $1 million, and now we're at this number. What Mr. Donaldson was talking about, like all of the conditions, we didn't want someone else to sweep in there, pay the $3 million, and do something that we also would not want to have. So we worked very carefully for over a year, many times, to figure out what was restrictive enough that it would fit the character of the community, but not so restrictive that no one would want to buy it. And I think we've come up with a perfect set of circumstances. Before we go to the cone of silence, we had some folks reach out came to the came to Don's office to discuss, like, what could they do. I've had several people reach out to me personally and say, what are you doing with this property? What are you doing with this property? There is a lot of activity in Palm City. There is a lot of properties along Map Road, part of which I think is because Map Road turned out beautiful. It's a testament to the CRA's work that it's if you build it, they will come, and they are coming. So that piece of property in a very beautiful neighborhood with a lot of opportunity. With Martin Highway, we got the Turnpike entrance and a 95 entrance exit right there. I believe the property, the $3 million is the minimum that we will accept. The bids, you're new, so how it works, it's like anything else. It's a sealed bid process. So if person A says, oh, I want that. Well, if you bid $3 million, the next person could bid 3.5 and you're out. So you have to put your bid in knowing that we're not accepting anything less than 3 million. But if there's 3 or 4 or 5 people in the mix, you don't know what they're bidding. You have to put your best deal forward in a sealed bid proposal. We have a committee of, who's on the committee? 5. Who are they? They're key.
Jordan Pastorius from the CRA, Jim Gorton, Public Works, Leo Rapetti from Utilities, Mandy Johns from Real Property, and Rex Centel from the Palm City Community.
That's a great.
CRA and NAC.
All of the professional, educated people that can look at a proposal and say, is the utility going to work? Is it going to fit in the CRA? Will the community like it? Will Real Property think it works? I think it's a great group, and we're ready to put it out there, and it'll go back on the tax roll. It won't be 90 apartments. The other advantage is that, which was said in the description, it'll have a connector road from Newbury Court. So imagine on the most north portion of the property, from Newbury Court to Palm City School Avenue. The advantage to the county is that all of the people, there's about 75 homes in Oak Brook, they have to come out, and when they get to Martin Highway to make the left, they have to come out. It's not signalized, they just have to take their chances. Now they can come through this back connector road and come out on Palm City School Avenue at a traffic signal and make it much safer, not just for them pulling out, but you can imagine if you're doing 35, 45 miles an hour on Martin Highway and someone just pulls right out in front of you. So there is a lot of advantages to it. What we need for you all to do today is to say, yes, staff, you have done a long time process to make this happen. Let's put it out there and see what happens. Short of doing that is you're asking us to keep it. Which
Mr.
was
Capps.
never the goal.
My question has to do with the STA and the creek that has had flooding problems right in that area? Or have the flooding problems been down the way a little ways?
The flooding problem is actually to the west. It's in Palm City Farms. But there's a restriction in that area, the area north of County Road 714 has a restriction all the way up to Sunset Trail. So we need to widen the creek in that area. And the biggest problem is getting your equipment down to the bottom of the creek. And this project will give us our staging area and give us room to bench that slope back, to soften the slope and to widen the bottom.
So under the prior plan, if it would have turned into 90 apartments, would any of this have been done as part of the prior plan?
You would have to negotiate access through either that property owner or one of the other property owners. The concern that we had in that area is that almost everything's developed at this point, and that's the ideal location to get into the creek to do what we need to do.
So if there's a silver lining behind everything that's transpired, to me that would be one of them, that we're actually going to own 0.93 acres that we can use for accessing the creek, so we can widen the creek, and these are good things that go along with Plan B as opposed to Plan A.
It does make that project more realistic.
And that really needed to happen to help with drainage in Palm City Farms.
It absolutely needs to happen.
Yeah, it's a critical project, and whether we had this or not, ultimately, we would have to acquire access to that, and it would either be through voluntary action or under the most extreme condition, condemnation.
And we don't do a lot of condemnation.
Well, I see that as a real benefit to all that's transpired. It'll be nice to be able to get that project done. So when would that end up happening, you think?
It's in the CIP. We're in initial design stage right now. We just got our report back last year. And so initial design stage, so we're still 5 years out anyway at the earliest. A project like that, we'll aggressively go after grants. And but we need our preliminary design first. So that's
We got $500,000 today. That's part of the same project.
Yep. Yeah, well, but no, that's Bessie Creek. So there,
No, but I'm saying Palm City Farms irrigation, it's all interconnected.
without a doubt, yeah. All of that drainage in Palm City Farms is all tied together. And I realize both of the new commissioners, I haven't yet sat down with you about that study, and I will. And after I do, then we're going to do a presentation to the board just to go over what we got. It's just a timing thing because of when you came onto the board.
Good, thank you.
Ms. Elder?
That was Mr. Gordon's light.
Okay, you done?
I just wanted to clarify the way we came up with the $3 million was we looked at the value of the property that the county would be getting along the creek. And the thought was that the stormwater MSTU would pay for that piece of the property. And if you subtract the value of that property from the total ASCII value, that's how we got to the $3 million. Does that make sense?
I understand the math, but I still think strongly that you need a new market analysis of that property because it's the market forces that will drive that. If everything's wonderful in Palm City and everybody's coming, you will build and they will come, then people should be willing to pay premium, I would think, based on my expertise in dealing with real estate. That's very reasonable. But to blindly just say, well, we're just going to put it at $3 million, that doesn't even make sense. You have to have up-to-date figures. So if I say, yeah, sure, go ahead and put that as surplus, within the county, a surplus property within the county, marketable, you have to have a solid figure.
Commissioner, the only thing I can add is that when we bring it back, we will have an appraisal looking at how it compares. The other thing is when you do a market appraisal, that becomes a public record and everybody will use that in the bidding process. We're essentially using the free market to do that analysis for us. So we will get the bids, we will get the competition on it, and that hopefully will establish a price that is fair and competitive. In the event there isn't a successful bidder, we'll certainly go back and then we would do more analysis to see what is the proper evaluation.
Yes, I understand very well about it being public information, understand that clearly. So then you want serious bidders to be able to approach the county, not somebody who's bottom fishing.
Commissioner Capps?
Understanding that the $3 million figure is just a floor price, minimum bid, and that the bids could very well be much more substantial than that. I'm comfortable with this, so I would move approval.
Thank you. I will second your motion.
With the up-to-date appraisal.
No, to respond to your comment, I think Mr. Donaldson said it. If you did an appraisal, the last time we did an appraisal, it was, I don't even want to have this conversation publicly for the people that are interested. That 4.5 million included the proposed 90 apartments on it. There's a property that sold recently with brand new, about 110 unit apartment complex for, I'm not sure of the exact number, it was a private deal, but it was in the neighborhood of $50 million for 110 apartments. So yeah, 4.4 million was a great opportunity for us, but it's what someone would bring. An appraisal, 3 million plus the money we're getting from the county makes it a break-even proposition, which is what I had said to my colleagues at the time. It wouldn't cost money, it would be a break even. Anything above 3 million, which I'm happy about, is the county making money on this transaction, which was not necessarily the goal, because as governments, we're not supposed to be competing against the private sector. My original intent was to stop 90 apartments from being built there and to make the county be as close to financially neutral as possible. 3 million, which we set as the minimum, gets us to financial neutrality. If it turns into a bidding situation, it's not a war because they don't know, it's not an auction. But if someone wanted to come forward, they have to not only give the dollar amount, they'd have to give a vision of what they'd want. Because we're not going to say, hey, you know, someone's going to pay us $5 million and going to put a smelting plant there, because they can. It's, hey, this is our vision for this property. We think it'll work into the neighborhood. We're going to pay $3.8 million, $4.1 million. 5 of our key employees will review, hopefully, those multiple proposals, come forward to the 5 of us with an opportunity, and then we will close this chapter. The CRA will get their funding back that they put up front. The district commission dollars will go back to where they were, and everyone will be paid, and it will be a huge success.
Well, you could also make a profit, too. There's nothing wrong with that. You say break even. If somebody's going to bid on this property, they know the restrictions. It's already been outlined by our CRA person here. So it's not a surprise, oh, I didn't know I could put 90 apartments or a smelting plant there. No, they're purchasing to fall within the ramifications of what's been laid out.
So Commissioner, the beauty of the RFP process is that not only can you sell the property, but you can also look at what your development objectives are. And in this case, those development objectives are really important because that's what kind of drove this whole deal, this whole process. So the RFP allows us to do that, allows us to say, these are the things that we want to see there, and you have to show us that. So not only do you need to have the funding, but you also need, as Commissioner Campy said, the vision. And there's criteria to the extent of which they're graded point-wise on that.
Yes, I understand all that.
Yeah.
Perfectly clear. They would obviously have to have a vision, and they have to have the wherewithal to see the project to the end.
Yes.
But they also have to pay a fair price, and market forces change. And that's what I've been going back to over and over again, although I'm being told, oh, well, everything, the numbers are I need to take a piece of paper and a pencil and really see how that can, you see what I'm trying to say?
I do, and the only...
And believe me, I want to get this off.
Yeah.
This nightmare off, okay, of not being productive for the county.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that they work hand in hand so that there is, I don't know that you can give development objectives a monetary value, but that is part of the value, is to get what it is we're looking for in that spot.
Understand, but I guess Palm City will be able to draw the right people because it's explosive in growth.
It's not explosive.
I just wanted to say that as part of the RFP, it is a responsibility of any bidder to do their due diligence ahead of time to make sure that's done. And then once we get a contract together and all that information, then they do the formal stuff normally because of the way our process is.
Understand perfectly well. Thank you.
I just want to clear the record. It was intimated that I supported this purchase. I did not. For a number of good reasons, I did not.
Voted once on it.
I voted against it.
No, on the final, but you voted originally. I had a 5-0 at one point. I was very pleased with you
I didn't
that day.
vote for this purchase. because
Not
it
the
was-
purchase.
It was unplanned, and it was unprecedented.
I'll have to go back and watch.
Well, thank
And
you.
it
I
also-
appreciate you saying that.
And it also, I agree with you, Commissioner Vargas, that there should have been an analysis done of the value of this. We do property appraisals for every other purchase. I don't know why on earth we don't do one when we're selling property.
Well, that's it. I
It seems backwards to me, too. but-
Absolutely. It's very convoluted.
Yeah. But this is the perhaps lemonade that we're trying to produce from lemons. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Let's take a 10-minute break.
10?
Yeah. We are back taking up Department 5, which is a request for approval of a contract with Hudson Protective Enterprises to patrol county conservation lands. Mr. Houston.
Do you want to start? You can start. Okay. Hi, I'm Michael Houston, Senior Project Manager for the Environmental Resource Division. The reason why we're bringing this item forward is we have had a long-term issue in terms of protecting our conservation lands from anything from off-road vehicle use, berry pickers, illegal structures, so on and so forth. And this is a group of off-duty law enforcement officers that can come and help us deal with those issues. And the importance of this is that they will go where we want them to go, when we want them to go there. And it will provide us a level of protection we've really never had with our conservation lands program. So that's why we came up with this idea of partnering with the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, who have officers that are accustomed to working in these kind of environments. They work in wooded areas all the time to help us deal with some of these enforcement issues that we've been having.
Frank Morley, Assistant County Attorney. The reason we're bringing this before the board is because we are diverting from our normal insurance requirements of $1 million for commercial auto. The vendor was unable to obtain such insurance. He is able to provide $200,000, $300,000 per incident, which is in line with Florida's sovereign immunity statute. Additionally, he will be waiving workers' comp as he has no employees and only has 1099 independent contractors. We will require a notice of exemption from the Department of Financial Services certifying that he is exempt from workers' comp.
And one more important point to make is that when they see a crime being committed or when something's happening, they immediately switch to their role as FWC law enforcement officers. So they're inactive while they're patrolling. The second something happens, they become active FWC law enforcement officers, at which point they're no longer working under the county's discretion. They're working under the state discretion.
Interesting. Is that legit?
Unfortunately, this is necessary. I'm so happy to see that we're finally taking action because, as we all know, in some of our most revered conservation habitats, things are out of control, and it's time to bring them back under our control and to take charge. So this gives us an ability to preserve our resources. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. Thank you for coming up with this idea. When I read it in the agenda item, I was hopeful this is what you were going to say it was going to be, and it is. I know that our constituents and neighbors and friends that live in Trailside have had nothing but difficulty. A lot of the gunshots that initiated and heading in their direction come from property that we are now in charge of. Will they be, I know they're not going to patrol this Hudson group won't be patrolling in there, but will they you'll give them direction to keep that neighborhood?
One of the specific things that they will be able to do is we have this issue with illegal structures all throughout that area. And in order for our code enforcement officers to feel safe going out there, they need an escort.
Mm-hmm.
So this will specifically help deal with that particular issue. And certainly, if they're also under contract with the Palmar Water Control District. So if people are shooting from outside of Palmar, that's something else that they can patrol. I don't know that we'll be sending them out there regularly to just patrol Palmar in those levees, but they will have a specific role where they can help us in that regard. In addition to, we have a stormwater treatment area with a wetland at Bessie Creek, and that's been plagued by off-road vehicles that are just tearing it up, and they come out there at 1 or 2 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So we're not out there, we don't know that it's out there, and it actually can put us in violation with the conservation easement with the Water Management District. So they'll be able to go out there and be able to patrol that area as well. So there's a lot of different things that they can do, including activities in Palmer that will help us deal with the problems that we've been having.
With Trailside?
With Trailside and with these illegal structures and people doing illegal things on their property that violate, county codes.
I appreciate that. I would just say that the most valuable resource out there is human resource, the people that live nearby. So I appreciate that they would look to protect damaging our environmentally sensitive areas, but I would encourage you to have a strong emphasis on trying to eliminate the beginnings of some of those things that the room has been filled here many times that are affecting our residents in Trailside. And congratulations for doing this. I appreciate it much. As elected officials, these residents come and they say, please help us, and we've been, beating our heads against the wall trying to figure out how to do it, and you have done it. It's a big day for you, Mike, big day.
It is.
Thanks.
Give him like a plaque or something. Both of you. You got a plaque too.
You've been here twice today.
Yeah.
Commissioner Heatherington.
So the duration is 3 years. Would you come back to us and just give us a report in a year and tell us how it's going and
Sure.
what you found and?
Yeah, we can document where they've gone and any arrests that are made, anything that they've investigated, we can provide all those kinds of details for you.
Commissioner Vargas.
Yes, I understand about the independent contractor status rather than W-2, and, that's fine. They don't have to carry workers' comp. I think my concern is about the 200 and 300. That would be for anybody to be able to carry on their insurance, state of Florida, and they'd be in compliance. But if they are a commercial auto liability insurance, are we protected in case there is an accident and somebody is killed or severely injured? Because we have an alliance now with this Hudson group?
Commissioner, yes, we would still
Enterprises.
have our sovereign immunity caps, which would cover that. Of 200.
Nobody be able to come back and say, well, my mother, father, sister, brother died, and you employed Hudson and this happened and it was a car accident or?
It would only be a limited circumstance in which they were not in their FWC law enforcement capacity. So if they were in pursuit of a violation or someone committing a crime, they would be back in their FWC position. And FWC's insurance is 200, 300. That's the state for all their commercial automobiles.
All right, but I'm just saying, would this be a potential to come back on us and they
I don't
have a
believe
lawsuit? You don't believe so or no?
No.
No, definitely not. So they wouldn't be able to come back and sue us and say, well, you owe us another $3 million because my relative died while they were.
So as a political subdivision of the state, we're capped at 300 per occurrence. There is a claims bill process that people go through the state legislature for amounts exceeding that if there was a jury verdict.
Commissioner Capps.
So these officers, do they have arrest powers?
And they would, but they would, under those circumstances, they would be operating as FWC law enforcement officers and not county contractors. So as I said, the second that they see something happen, they immediately become active duty FWC law enforcement officers.
Right. My concern is just, do they have enough teeth, to actually stop problems? Because like the wetland damage that's being done out there with these big dune buggy things, just tearing up beautiful lands, and I hope they have the ability and the will to put a halt to a lot of things that are going on out there, illegal structures, all kinds of other things, and that they're not just
And they
sort of
can-
monitoring things, but, they're stopping problems, so.
And they can enforce Martin County laws too. It's not just state statutes and laws. They're able to arrest people for violating county laws as well. So, and some of that would be covered by county law.
Commissioner, the enforcement of laws and regulations on county-owned property is very clear and easy. When somebody is engaging in a lawful activity on their own private property, And so the nuances of this are, I don't want to underestimate how great this is to have on there, but it is a tool. It does not solve all your problems.
Right, right. Because like out in Palmar, you have little tiny isolated lots in the middle of swamps that are owned by private individuals, and those lots are right next door, right, border pieces that are owned by the county. So you have people, driving big.
Anyway, I think that discussion is best, we could talk to you individually rather than describing the nuances for those that regularly use that area.
Right. So anyway, just hope they can, put some teeth into this.
Any further questions or comments? Is there,
Motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second.
there's a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And on to
Good day, Mike Houston.
our final agenda item, Department 6, which is a request for approval of resolution initiating Chapter 164 Florida Statutes conflict resolution proceedings between Martin County and the City of Stuart regarding the city's noncompliance with the 2023 interlocal agreement and its comprehensive plan. Ms. Woods.
Yes. Sarah Woods, for the record, Martin County Attorney. Again, this is a request for an attached resolution to initiate conflict resolution proceedings pursuant to Chapter 164 with the City of Stuart regarding the city's refusal to abide by the interlocal agreement dated December 12th, 2023, including its failure to provide a letter supporting the county's grant application to the Federal Rail Administration, as well as its failure to comply with Element 2 of its comprehensive plan. Let me give you some background because I think the facts are important for this. On October 23rd, 2023, Brightline Trains issued a Treasure Coast request for proposals for the location of a train station in either Martin or St. Lucie County. As you all well know, this was born out of our 2018 settlement agreement with Brightline, Martin County settlement agreement with Brightline, which required the location of a train station on the Treasure Coast within 5 years of the beginning of the Brightline service. Martin County and the City of Stuart approved an interlocal agreement dated December 12th, 2023, to outline the parties' responsibilities for submitting a joint proposal to the Brightline's RFP for a station and a parking garage on 3 county-owned parcels. In December of 2023, the county and the city jointly submitted a proposal to Brightline pursuant to that interlocal agreement. On March 4th of 2024, Brightline sent a letter to the city and the county notifying them that the joint proposal was selected. Brightline included in its letter of selection terms to proceed with the negotiation of final agreements for development in a new train station. City and county staff developed a proposed amended interlocal agreement concerning the station. On August 12th, 2024, the city approved the amended interlocal agreement as well as its ground lease agreement with Brightline. On August 26, 2024, the City Commission directed its staff to prepare an agenda item for its September 9th, 2024 meeting to consider rescinding approval of the 2023 interlocal agreement, the amended 2023 interlocal agreement, and the Brightline ground lease. On the 9th, the city rescinded its approval of the amended interlocal and the ground lease and directed the city manager to meet with the county and Brightline for a better deal. The city did not rescind or take any action regarding the December 12th, 2023 interlocal agreement. It's important for all of us to remember that the Board of County Commissioners directed staff continuously to continue negotiating with the city and Brightline to reach an agreement. They specifically took this action during its September 10th and September 24th meeting. On October 14th, the city unilaterally considered alternative terms for negotiation for a train station, which ultimately would reduce the city's obligation to $5 million, a $25 million reduction, and would increase the number of daily Brightline stops from 4 to 8. The city did not authorize the city manager to move forward with negotiations of the alternative terms and did not provide direction to the city manager for further negotiations. Thereafter, at the October 22nd Board of County Commission meeting, because understand, the process had stopped, the board requested an update on the Brightline station. Following the update, the Board of County Commissioners unanimously directed the county administrator and the county attorney to issue a request for bid of a long-term lease on the county's downtown Stuart property and fairground property for a high-speed rail station and to prepare a federal grant application for station funding. On November 12th of 2024, the board again unanimously awarded the RFB to Brightline Trains and approved a First Amendment to the board's November 25th, 2018 settlement agreement with Brightline. Among the changes in the First Amendment was a maximum contribution of $15 million by the county for the train station, with the remaining costs to be funded by state or federal grants. The board also authorized staff to apply for a USDOT Federal Rail Administration Federal-State Partnership for Intercity Passenger Rail Program Grant. On November 25th, the county sent an email to both the City of Stuart, Village of Indiantown, Town of Ocean Breeze, and Town of Jupiter Island requesting letters of support for the county's grant application by December 2nd, 2024, in order to meet the grant application deadline. P.S. All the other jurisdictions have provided those letters of support. Stuart City Manager advised the county he'd bring the request to the city's November 25th, 2024 meeting. The city manager presented the county's request at the November 25th meeting. The city took no action regarding the request. On January 7th, 2025, the county administrator sent a letter to the city manager outlining the city's legal obligation under the interlocal agreement to provide the letter of support, as well as the negative financial impact the city's failure to act will have on the county's grant application. The letter concluded with the hope that the matter would be resolved quickly without the need to resort to the Florida Governmental Conflict Resolution Act. The city manager presented this county's January 7th letter to the city commission on January 13th. The city failed to take any action regarding the county's request. The following day, at the board's January 14th, 2025 meeting, the county attorney provided an update regarding the city's failure to provide a letter supporting the county's grant application. At that meeting, the board authorized the county attorney to prepare an agenda item for the January 28th, 2025 meeting requesting approval of a resolution to initiate conflict resolution proceedings pursuant to Chapter 164. I'm going to read in part the purpose of the Conflict Resolution Act in Florida law. It's to promote, protect, and improve public health, safety, and welfare, to enhance intergovernmental cooperation efforts by creation of a governmental conflict resolution procedure that can provide an equitable, expeditious, effective, and inexpensive method for resolution of conflicts between and among local and regional governmental entities. It is the intent of the legislature that conflicts between governmental entities be resolved to the greatest extent possible without litigation. The issues are that the city's actions, including refusal to provide a letter supporting the FRA grant, is a breach of Section B of the December 12th, 2023 interlocal agreement. In addition, the city's action violates several provisions of Element 2 of the city's own comprehensive plan, which require support of grants for passenger rail, as well as the construction of a train station in the city, which interestingly the comprehensive plan sets forth an area where is exactly where the county has proposed to place the station. It provides an area of geography where it should be. My recommendation, or the staff recommendation, is move to approve the proposed resolution initiating Chapter 164 conflict resolution. Briefly, and we can, I don't know if the board wants me to go over the resolution itself. It basically, on several pages, goes through all of the facts that I've outlined. It also talks about the sections in the 2023 interlocal agreement that require the city to support each other in grant applications, both of us. There's also a provision within the ILA that says if one term of the ILA is deemed invalid, the remaining provisions survive. It's our position that this interlocal agreement in 2023 was never repealed. It remains a binding legal contract, if you will, between the city and the county. And after the city and the county's proposal was selection, the county relied on that interlocal agreement to continue. The other issue that's outlined in the resolution is the requirement of the city in their comprehensive plan that the city shall continue to encourage expansion of passenger rail service. It then goes on, the city shall actively support the establishment of passenger rail on the FEC right-of-way, including the construction of a downtown rail station, transportation depot, preferably on Flagler Avenue between East Ocean and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. But both of those policies require shall. In addition, the MPO's 2045 Long-Range Transportation Plan also encourages transit options, including passenger rail service to the county. I will say that in the resolution, there's a typo, and I apologize. It's at the top of page 4. The copy you have refers to the MPO's 2024 long-range transportation plan. It's the 2045, because we plan in 20-year increments plan. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, one more thing. If the board decides to enter into conflict resolution, there's a multi-step process. The first step would be to have a conflict assessment meeting within 30 days of the passage of this resolution. We've been on the receiving end of conflict resolution in the past. The city of Stuart initiated it with us, I want to say maybe 10 or 12 years ago, over a CRA matter, and also the town of Jupiter Island, I believe, over inlet management, was it? And in the past, my recommendation in the county administrators, we've included the chairman of the county commission to assist us with that initial meeting. So with the board's authorization, if this passes, we'd ask if Chairman Hurd could join the county administrator and the county attorney in the initial conflict meeting. The hope is always that in this initial conflict meeting between staff and a representative, that we can reach a resolution amicably and quickly. The next step is there's a joint meeting between the two elected bodies, and then the third step is to go to mediation. So again, it's not a lawsuit. It shouldn't be expensive, and we remain optimistic that we can work this out amicably.
Commissioner Capps.
I'd just like to say that I support our county attorney's thorough analysis and her efforts to advocate for our legal interests. This is her job. And if she didn't, and we were damaged, this would be legal malpractice on her part. So thank you for that. And this is not a lawsuit. You know, there have been things in social media that use that word, and that is not at all what this is. This is a conflict resolution proceeding. And we're just trying to get in the same room and work this out amicably, and I think it's a good, reasonable next step. And with that, I would move approval.
Commissioner Vargas?
I have a number of questions. Who's really in charge here on this? Is it somebody that's not elected, that's a paid staff member that's bringing this forward continuously?
No, ma'am. It is, we're following a statutory process, which I'd be happy to set forth with you. So the Florida law sets forth in great detail who would attend each of the steps. Again, we only engage in this when we've been authorized by you all, our elected officials. We only can take positions that are authorized by you all, our elected officials. The resolution sets forth the parameters, which you're considering right now, of what we would engage in and who would be guiding that. You would provide us board direction on this. And again, it's all strictly within Chapter 163, which sets forth steps that would be done all the way. And again, it's all in accordance with Florida law.
So what are we trying to accomplish here by continuing with this? Continuing. Was $6 million spent on a lawsuit with Brightline
This is not,
already?
This particular matter is specifically related to our application for a train station.
Yeah,
That's solely what this is about.
This doesn't have anything to do with the lawsuit years ago over Brightline. That was over safety and other issues that were in federal court. Principally, I think there might have been one state action, also over environmental issues, but that has nothing to do with this.
Okay, but do you think
Matter.
it's prudent to continue to spend county resources, time, and money this way? To go after the city of Stewart, the county seat?
Being the county attorney is part of my job, so that's part of what I do. There's no additional cost to the taxpayer for this. And yes, ma'am, we have a contract with the city, and we have we've been told that we need to get these letters of support.
Who told you this? Who said you had to get these letters of support?
The grant advisor, I believe.
Well, we talked to the board about getting letters of support when
Yes.
we made the application, that we would get letters of support from the various community members. And of course, we had an interlocal, or have an interlocal agreement with the city of Stewart, where it's anticipated that they would continue to provide that letter of support. The continued actions that we are moving forward today are policy decisions by the five of you. And so we continue to receive direction from the board on our continued proceedings.
So if Martin County does not get the grant, will we continue forward to eventually sue the city of Stewart?
We haven't said that. We're just
No.
simply asking for a letter of support for the grant at this time.
Just as the board continued, Don and I have worked on this for quite a while, just as we continued optimistic during the fall, and the board at the time was, we felt optimistic and hopeful that we would work something out with the city and with Brightline to come to consensus. And when it didn't happen, the board didn't make any threats. They just went with the RFP process and approved an agreement with Brightline. Until the board gives me some direction about lawsuits, that wouldn't be anticipated. I don't have the authority to preemptively file lawsuits without the board's permission.
Yeah, okay, but you have many other counties, as you said, that are in support, so file those with the grant application.
Do you mean municipalities?
Municipalities, counties? I think
I don't have any other counties that I'm aware of. Mr. Stokas sent out the letter. We have all the municipalities in Martin County supporting the grant application, but because, and I'm wading out of my comfort zone here, but because for grant purposes, this is the jurisdiction that the station will be located in, and this is the jurisdiction that has the most benefit, arguably, if one sees benefit. I believe when a grant evaluator is looking at this, this could be an important letter.
possibly, possibly not. I've written grants before, so it may or may not be.
Yes, ma'am.
So what's the end goal here? I mean, with us pursuing Stewart?
The end goal is to get a letter of support.
And if they don't want to give it to you, then what happens? We're going to go to the next step
I
then?
think the step,
Joint
it's
meeting and then
I think
it's
we're up.
a one step at a time.
lawsuit?
Yes.
One step at a
Yes.
time.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has turned this whole Brightline from the very, very beginning, getting to be decades old now, this whole issue. But focusing my attention specifically on where we are right now, I did give direction to Ms. Woods and Mr. Donaldson about, they were both very clear and upfront with me about what my opinion and wishes would be in terms of crafting a letter. They shared the language of what the letter would look like, the intent of the letter, the sort of the feel of the letter. I was hopeful that that letter would sort of, allow their city manager to bring it up. And I watched their meetings too, and Mr. Mortel tried quite a few times to just have the conversation. And obviously, their board is very well divided on, their opinions of the train station, the train system are very apparent. I felt that the letter did not meet its intended goal. I think it was misrepresented as a threat for lawsuit. It wasn't. It was a strongly worded letter saying we would like you to live up to what we feel is your portion of an agreement to support us. I was surprised at the level of pushback because originally most of the opposition to the station was financial. And their commissioners that are opposed to the station, as is their obvious prerogative, was to fight on behalf of city residents' wallets. And when it turned out that the continuation of a requested station would have really no dollar amount price tag attached to it for city, then why not support it? If it was purely a financial issue that you didn't think it financially made sense for your residents, and now it wasn't going to have a financial burden on your residents, you could have at least continued to support it. But I think that was a little bit of a long shot or wishful thinking on our part. I do believe that you used the word evaluators, that federal staff empowered to approve grant proposals will be well aware of the conflict between the county and the city. If they were not organically aware of it, I'm sure there's plenty of people opposed to the station will be writing letters to whoever's involved in that process. So at this particular point, even if we were successful in going through the steps that you've just outlined, which are not lawsuit steps, but are those things. The last time I remember the city had a real kind of strained relationship was while I was out of office. So between 2012 and 2016, where you guys met at the Flagler Center to sit down and almost have like marriage counseling between the two governmental entities. It had gotten elevated to that point. And I believe the two of you were probably either involved or definitely here at the time, maybe in different capacity. Not you, Ms. Woods, but you would have been the county engineer at the time. And Ms. Woods would have probably been assistant. What was your title before you were deputy?
Assistant, but I didn't deal with
This. So I'm thinking, even if we are successful in gaining some type of letter of support from the city, it would be under duress. It wouldn't have, I don't believe, the same appeal that an actual letter that came willingly from the most important government entity other than us in this, because like you said, it will be located within their jurisdiction, and 2.5, 3 of their commissioners don't feel the value in it. Even the 2 that were historically for it, one had made a motion, the other had seconded it, and then he withdrew his motion, so it never even got to a vote, which I would have preferred a vote on the record. My only concern now is if we continue to drag this process along, it just adds it's just gasoline on the fire, if you will. I think it gives their elected officials who are completely opposed to the station under any circumstances, now it's apparent, just more reason to argue, fight, and continue to disagree, which could really irreparably harm our city-to-county relationship on all of the other topics. I would almost be interested in going it with the letters of support that we've already received. Forcing their hand to give us a letter of support, I don't know how valuable that would be. If I was in Washington reviewing grant applications, knowing that, yes, a dry letter of support from the city of Stewart, knowing what the circumstances were, I think you got from, who were the entities that you did receive?
All the other ones.
But what are they? Who are they?
the Village of Indiantown, the Town of Ocean Breeze, Sewell's Point, and Jupiter Island,
And the MPO.
and the MPO.
Those are the letters?
Yes.
And one obviously from us.
Yes, and Congressman Mast and Senator Scott. I did want to mention one thing. We do not intend, and I'll defer to Mr. Stokas to answer more specific questions. This is not about one letter, because we intend to, pursuant to the amended settlement agreement, to try to go after as many grants, state and federal, as we possibly can to lower the impact on the taxpayers of all of Martin County. That was one of the things that the board discussed. So it's not just, this is the one right before you today, but we intend to continue applying for any kind of a grant that we think that would help to fund the station and not be funded by the taxpayers.
I get that, and I appreciate that. But if you get the one letter now, it's either one or all. If they're not willing to do it for this round of grants, I don't see them willing, barring some kind of major shift in opinion or personalities. I don't see a major change. My recommendation would be that we end the back and forth fighting with them on at least on the concept of us requesting a letter of support. If the letter of support comes with a gun to their head, I don't see the value in the letter of support. I think we'd be better ending this portion of the disagreement and going with the letters of support separate of them. Anyone in DC will understand that 3 personalities on their board are not interested in the station. I don't know how valuable the letter is at this point, especially if it means we're going to continue to be in conflict with our municipality. Their residents are also our constituents, I don't know if there's value in it for a letter of support. If down the road we figure we need to challenge them on some other things, so be it. But I don't see a value in a letter of support if we have to rip it out of their hands. Thank you.
Mr. Donaldson?
Commissioner, I would, and the decision on this is purely a policy matter, and so it really, for us, moving forward is either way is fine. I will only say that the goal would not to be to get a letter under duress, and that I think in the conflict resolutions that we've concluded in the past, they did not end in lawsuits, they ended in a amicable resolution in the matter, and I think the Jupiter Island issue we ended up with an interlocal that described how we would work together on the inlet. So our goal would not be to have a judge order a letter. It would be to try to negotiate what other amicable means. Is there a other path forward to get a letter that we could get? And perhaps if you feel that the opinion there is not, then that's fine. I just wanted to say our goal would not be to enter these negotiations with a mediator with the goal of creating more conflict. The idea is to resolve it and to find out if there is any negotiation with the other parties that the two boards could come together on, and whether it's an amended interlocal or something like that where you could jointly agree on how you move forward on this particular issue.
Having watched their meeting and heard their opinions, I don't think you're going to get there.
Commissioner Heatherington?
You just touched on my earlier thought and question. Would we deem the conflict resolved if we received a letter, or were there other things in the ILA that we were looking at, or future amendments to the ILA? But you just touched on that it's not just one letter, it's the ILA in general. And conflict resolution, I don't think is a bad thing. I think, there could be a lot that could come of this. And I think about some of the LAP projects that we funded at the MPO that were, in my mind, the MPO, and we sponsored the city's LAP project. I don't believe they were LAP certified. And we had to offer our staff and our letters of support. And in order for them to get grants on sidewalk projects and things that I didn't necessarily agree with the project in itself, but we participated as a board because it was something that their residents wanted. So I think that there's benefit to the conflict resolution.
So the therefore at the end of this resolution says that we take all appropriate steps to seek enforcement of the 2023 interlocal agreement regarding joint proposal to Brightline Trains for a train station and parking garage, and of the cities of Stewart's comprehensive plan. So what we're seeking to do is to make the parties compliant to the interlocal. I mean, good heavens, you can't break binding agreements. We have contractual obligations with all kinds of entities. What happens if we say, you know what, that firefighter contract is it's just too much money. That is just $25 million too much money. I'm not going to pay it. You can't walk away from these things. They were the aggressors in the first place. The city of Stewart was. You'll recall the county was more reluctant, more hesitant than the city was. But they have contractual obligations that have not been extinguished, even though 3 of their commissioners don't like them. That doesn't extinguish them. They still have an obligation to honor their contracts. So I don't think it's the letter of support. I don't know how important that is, but what is important is that we have conflict resolutions so that we honor our legal obligations that we all agreed to. Ms. Woods.
I just, to Mr. Donaldson's point, I just wanted to share, just personally, I practiced law for over 40 years. There is nothing that, in my opinion, with government that's better than sitting everybody face to face around a table and having a discussion, which is what this process does. I don't think there's any promise of resolution necessarily, but I remain hopeful, maybe I'm a crazy optimist, that if we sit, the city and county staff and hopefully a representative from the city, and we sit around and we have a civil discussion, maybe we can meet a compromise to talk about things. At a minimum, at least there has been a discussion rather than isolated comments said in the press or at a separate meeting, and we're just kind of shooting sideways at each other. And I don't even want to call it shooting, because I don't think that that's healthy, that we're just talking crosswise with each other. And so that I know for Mr. Donaldson and I, the idea was to get everybody around a table and kind of talk it through. And if it doesn't, then it comes back to you all to decide. But that this is to sit down and talk about it. I will tell you, when this process started, when we were working on the interlocal agreement to submit the bid, that is exactly what happened. You know, there was a back and forth among city and county staff. There were compromises made. Almost all of the sentences in that interlocal went back and forth up to the wire, and with discussions with the board. So I'm just suggesting that, yeah, it's not our intent for this to be adversarial in any way. The intent is to see if we can find common ground.
Mr. Campy?
I agree with both of what you said, Commissioner Hurd. I agree in terms of the value of an agreement, and I agree with what Ms. Woods just mentioned about trying to, if we could all sit down collectively as a group and talk it through. I'm interested in all of that. I'm just saying, if the gist of that original conversation meeting was to get a letter of support from the city, having watched their comments, I don't think we're going to get a letter of support. And if we somehow maneuver our way into a letter of support, I don't know how valuable it is in the process versus leaving that specific portion alone, letting it play out in DC and elsewhere every time you need it to, and then still have a conversation on what does this look like going forward. But if we're going to negotiate specifically for the letter of support, but I also agree that 3 commissioners previous entered the city and their staff into a competition, if you will, to get the station to come to Stewart. And now with new commissioners, we have new commissioners. And so I want to build a resolution with our colleagues on the City of Stewart Commission. We represent the same people. And I'd like to see, like you said, this not being hammered out or argued out in social media, blogs, articles in the newspaper, that they're going to write no matter what, even though they didn't reach any of us for comment, which wouldn't have been ideal anyway to start to play this out in the newspaper. But if you want to get together and have a group discussion, some of us, you're talking about just the chair, correct? At this particular meeting? Okay. Look, I'm perfectly happy to send Commissioner Hurd with you all as our representative. I'm just saying, if it's exclusively to get a letter from them and you came back with some, half-baked letter of support, I don't know how valuable that is. I would like to see us start to put this behind us. There's a lot of other things we're going to have to work on collectively with them.
Agree. Do you want a second to Commissioner Capps' motion?
I think so, right? You have a motion.
The motion is to move that the board approve the proposed resolution initiating Chapter 164 Florida Statutes Conflict Resolution Proceedings.
Is it only for a letter?
No. It's for, it's conflict resolution. It says nothing about a letter.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Vargas dissenting.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I could, Sarah Woods again, would that motion, or could I have a board authorization to have Commissioner Hurd join county staff in the initial meeting?
I'd make a motion that Commissioner Hurd, as our chair, represent the board with our staff in those discussions.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
What else? It's at the end of the day, time for commissioner comments. Commissioner Vargas.
Gee, I've had a lot of comments today. I hope they were all taken in. I don't have to go over that again. No, I think that I've spoken succinctly. I think I've been very factual. I think I have covered all of the topics thoroughly. I will continue to do so. We have to keep the spirit of Martin County above any fray. People are watching. Each and every one of us. Unfortunately, I did not have the pleasure or the courtesy to be able to make the vote 1 week off of when I was put in office. This board could have waited to allow me to weigh in, especially to this matter.
Commissioner Capps.
I'm good.
I'm set. Mr. Campy.
I'm set.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I'm all set.
Mr. Donaldson.
Do I have anything more?
Ms. Woods. Any public comment? We are adjourned.